Chapter 718. In the Qingyao Pavilion. After receiving Yu Haoran's elemental energy, the alchemy fire in the furnace seemed to have a life of its own and directly transformed into a faint shadow. As the person who directly provided elemental energy, Yu Haoran could feel that the shadow, formed by the alchemy fire, was the original owner of the alchemy furnace, Saint Elixir Wondrous Venerable. Seeing that the power of the opponent's phantom image had suddenly increased, the blazing fire in the flamingo's blood essence was not to be outdone. It also transformed into a divine beast phoenix with a noble and pure demeanor, its entire body exuding a majestic blaze. Punk! Seeing that the remnant consciousness of the flamingo's blood essence had unexpectedly transformed into a divine beast phoenix, Saint Elixir Wondrous Venerable acted as if it had been provoked. After a light shout, he faintly formed a seal with his 10 fingers, and a giant square seal appeared above the divine beast phoenix's head. Clang! Seeing the square seal quickly exploding above its head, the divine beast phoenix let out a long cry and then flapped its wings to meet the square seal. Boom! Although they were limited by the alchemy furnace, and Feng Qingyun and the others were unable to see the two flames tearing each other apart, when the two flames collided for the first time, the roar formed not only caused Feng Qingyun's expression to change, but also caused Chu Zhongyu and the others to be instantly affected. Gongsun Yuding, who had the lowest cultivation, had a line of blood flowing out of her 5 orifices. Fortunately, Feng Qingyun, who had already sensed Gongsun Yuding's situation, helped her block the aftermath of the roar in time and used his gentle soul power to help her recover. Tinger, how about Master send you out of the Qingyao Pavilion? Seeing that there was a trace of panic on Gongsun Yuding's face, Feng Qingyun suggested with concern. Shaking her head vigorously, Gongsun Yuding stared at Yu Haoran with an attitude that said she would never leave. In response, Feng Qingyun could only sigh lightly. Then, he used his soul power and origin energy to create a defensive barrier around her body to prevent her from being hit again. When the two flames clashed for the first time, even Feng Qingyun, a martial saint expert who had comprehended a special power of law, had to bear some of the impact. As for the experts in Xianyang City with higher cultivations and stronger strength, they also felt the power fluctuations coming from the Qingyao Pavilion. In the palace, Emperor Qin, who had just finished making arrangements for the army and the engagement ceremony, wanted to take a breather and rest. However, the sudden energy fluctuation in Xianyang City made his expression change. The powerful divine sense of a second tribulation quasi-martial venerable followed the traces left behind by the energy fluctuations and instantly tracked them to the Qingyao Pavilion. When he saw Yu Haoran with his hands on the pill furnace and his face slightly flushed, Emperor Qin couldn't help but bitterly laugh. Unlike other alchemy grandmasters and alchemy grandmasters, other alchemy grandmasters and alchemy grandmasters might not be able to refine such a sensational top alchemy pill within 100 years. But what about Yu Haoran? Instead, he treated top alchemy pills, or alchemy pills with heaven-defying effects, as ordinary alchemy pills, and would refine them every few days. Of course, this was also because Yu Haoran's alchemy skills were strong enough and he was confident in his alchemy technique. Otherwise, if he failed to refine alchemy pills, not only would he waste a lot of precious elixirs, but the rumors after failure would also have a certain impact on his alchemy heart. In an ordinary courtyard in the backyard of the Meng clan, on the surface of a man-made lake, a burly middle-aged man of about 40 years old sat cross-legged on the lake, motionless. However, when a weak energy fluctuation came from Xianyang City, the middle-aged man couldn't help but frown. Although he didn't open his eyes, his enormous divine sense, which was like a star, instantly tracked to the Qingyao Pavilion. When he saw that the person who had caused the energy fluctuation was Yu Haoran, who had refined the 5 Lives mysterious gate pill, the middle-aged man immediately became very interested in the alchemy pill he was refining. Then, his divine sense condensed into a shadow and hid in the void like Emperor Qin. Emperor Qin, who was also hiding in the void, glanced coldly at the middle-aged man, then turned his attention back to Yu Haoran and ignored him. The middle-aged man also ignored Emperor Qin. After sensing the energy fluctuation, the top powerhouses of the Gu clan, Wang family, Prince Mansion, and other aristocratic families in Xianyang City used their divine sense to condense a shadow and hid in the void to observe Yu Haoran, who was refining the alchemy pill. Although the power of the alchemy furnace's alchemy fire had increased several times with the support of Yu Haoran's origin energy, the fiery bird's blood essence that had transformed into the divine beast phoenix was a terrifying existence of the third stage exalted realm. Therefore, the divine beast phoenix's blood essence's first attack directly shattered the square seal formed by the alchemy fire shadow. Brother Ran. Yu Haoran took a deep breath when he saw that the alchemy furnace's alchemy fire was at a complete disadvantage. After swallowing the elixir used to conceal the instant recovery of his origin energy, he instructed the second doppelganger in his sea of consciousness. After receiving all the origin energy from the second doppelganger, Yu Haoran instantly recovered to his peak state and continued to channel his origin energy into the alchemy furnace's shadow. Only when the alchemy furnace's alchemy fire completely suppressed the fiery bird's blood essence could the energy contained in the blood essence be integrated into the spiritual liquid and enter the next step of pill condensation. Therefore, the battle between the alchemy furnace's alchemy fire and the fiery bird shadow was a tug-of-war that determined whether he could successfully refine the nirvana pill in the end. After channeling all the origin energy in his dantian into the alchemy fire shadow, Yu Haoran hurriedly took a real origin energy recovery elixir and held a 5th stage level 9 spirit stone tightly. After receiving the support of Yu Haoran's origin energy, the shadow continued to form seals with its 10 fingers. An identical square seal appeared once again on top of the divine beast phoenix's head. Facing the reappearing square seal, the divine beast phoenix's attack method was the same, which was to use valiant means to meet force with force. The result was exactly the same as the first battle. In the next hour, Yu Haoran, the second doppelganger, the alchemy furnace's shadow, and the divine beast phoenix transformed from the fiery bird's shadow fell into a cycle. It was a cycle where whoever exhausted their origin energy first would fail. With the help of the origin energy recovery elixir and spirit stone, the second doppelganger directly channeled origin energy into Yu Haoran's body. Similarly, with the help of the origin energy recovery elixir and spirit stone, as well as the origin energy channeled by the second doppelganger, Yu Haoran directly channeled origin energy into the alchemy furnace's shadow. With the help of Yu Haoran and the second doppelganger's shadow, the alchemy fire's shadow continued to form seals with its 10 fingers and blasted the divine beast phoenix, transformed from the fiery bird shadow. And the divine beast phoenix, transformed from the fiery bird's shadow, attacked the square seal again and again. But overall, the side with the real hope of winning was Yu Haoran, the second doppelganger, and the alchemy fire shadow. Chapter 719. In the Qingya Pavilion. As the initiator of the dual flames, Yu Haoran was not affected by the collision of the two flames. However, for Chu Zhongyu and the others in the Qingya Pavilion, it was a situation of ice and fire. This was because they had to use all of their elemental energy to resist the impact of the energy waves from the cauldron. Every time they resisted, it consumed a terrifying amount of elemental energy from their dantian. Originally, Feng Qingyun was worried that his disciples would not be able to withstand the continuous impact of the energy waves, so he wanted them to leave the Qingya Pavilion temporarily. However, when he found that Chu Zhongyu and the others were desperately resisting the impact of the energy waves, their elemental energy was constantly being consumed and recovered. This process was 10 times faster than normal cultivation. He immediately dismissed the idea of persuading his disciples to leave. This rapid process of consuming and recovering elemental energy was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Chu Zhongyu and the others. It was an opportunity for them to increase their cultivation in a short period of time without any side effects. In the cauldron, the 4 opposing forces continued to repeat the monotonous cycle. However, as time passed, With the support of Yu Haoran and his second doppelganger regardless of the cost, the illusory image of the cauldron fire went from being at an absolute disadvantage to being at a stalemate. Now, it had the absolute advantage. Seeing that the divine beast phoenix was only barely able to break the square seal formed by the illusory image of the elixir fire after 10 attacks, Yu Haoran secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Subsequently, he instructed his second doppelganger in his sea of consciousness not to inject any elemental energy into the cauldron fire for the time being. Furthermore, he was to use his own elemental energy to support the energy consumed by the illusory image of the elixir fire. Without the help of his second doppelganger, the attack power and speed of the illusory image of the elixir fire slowed down a little. However, the divine beast phoenix, which had consumed almost 90% of its blood essence, was still losing. Boom! The divine beast phoenix that was conjured by the blazing flames was smashed into countless sparks and flames by the force of the square seal after it failed to counter the square seal's attack. Brother Ran, lend me a hand. Looking at the dancing sparks and flames in the pill furnace, Yu Haoran took a deep breath and directly shouted to the second doppelganger in the sea of consciousness. Without the slightest hesitation, the second clone directly poured all the essence energy that had just recovered 70% into Yu Haoran's dantian. With the support of the second doppelganger, Yu Haoran withdrew his right hand from the pill furnace and quickly formed a seal with his 10 fingers. At the same time, the soul power in his sea of consciousness directly merged with the pill fire phantom, controlling the pill fire phantom's 10 fingers to form a seal. Whether it was the seal formed by Yu Haoran or the seal formed by the illusory pill fire, every seal that was formed would swallow a portion of the sparks and flames, and then merge with the spirit liquid at the edge of the pill furnace. And when the first seal that swallowed the sparks and flames fused with the spirit liquid, a powerful suction force suddenly formed from the spirit liquid. This strong suction force began to forcibly draw and devour the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the Qingyao Pavilion. As more and more seals that swallowed sparks and flames fused with the spirit liquid, the suction force from the spirit liquid became stronger and stronger. When the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the Qingyao Pavilion could no longer meet the demand of the spirit liquid, the strong suction force began to draw the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the entire Qingyuan Guild Hall. And when the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the Qingyuan Guild Hall could no longer meet the demand of the spirit liquid, the suction force began to draw in the spiritual chi of heaven and earth outside the Qingyuan Guild Hall. But at this time, Yu Haoran encountered a problem, and that was that the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the entire Xianyang city was completely sealed by the formation. The suction force formed by the spirit liquid was simply unable to draw in the slightest bit of spiritual chi of heaven and earth from the formation. Your Majesty, I know that the body formed by your divine sense must be here. I will have to trouble you to open the sealing formation of the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and lend me a hand. Yu Haoran continued to form seals with his 10 fingers as he pleaded to the void above his head. This emperor will lend you a hand. In response to Yu Haoran's request, Emperor Qin didn't hesitate in the slightest. He informed his main body to open the sealing formation of the Qingyuan Guild Hall and responded to Yu Haoran's request at the same time. Many thanks, Your Majesty. Feeling the suction force extending to the Qingyuan Guild Hall, Yu Haoran once again obtained a large amount of spiritual chi of heaven and earth. After raising his head to express his gratitude, he continued to speed up the formation of seals to swallow the sparks and flames in the pill furnace. With the assistance of the pill fire phantom's 10 fingers, it took less than 10 minutes for all the sparks and flames in the pill furnace to fuse into the spirit liquid. And at this time, the powerful suction force formed by the spirit liquid had already drawn in the spiritual chi of heaven and earth within a radius of 15 kilometers. Of course, the drastic change in the spiritual chi of heaven and earth had also alarmed many people. In the Imperial Palace, in the Third Prince's Palace, Brother Tian Yi, are you going to take action? Meng Sheng, who hadn't left the Meng family of Xianyang City, asked with an anxious expression as his fingers rapidly tapped on the table. Meng Sheng, at this time, the Qingyuan Guild Hall can be said to be filled with experts like the clouds. Not only is there the old ancestor of the Meng family, but also my imperial father. Qin Tianyi looked at Meng Sheng with a smile that wasn't a smile, and said in a tone as if he couldn't take action. If you and I take action, wouldn't we be courting death? Brother Tianyi, Meng Sheng, am not a fool. How can I expose our existence in front of so many people? Facing Qin Tianyi's concern, Meng Sheng stopped tapping on the table and said with a slightly sinister expression, I plan to use the death soldiers that I have raised to charge directly into the Qingyao Pavilion. Then, I will use the method of the death soldiers' divine souls to self-destruct. Not only will I be able to destroy the pill refinement of that surnamed you, but I might even be able to take his life. What cultivation! Qin Tianyi didn't feel the slightest bit surprised by Meng Sheng's method. In reality, it seemed that this was the only method that had a chance of success. However, he attached great importance to the cultivation of the death soldiers that Meng Sheng had raised. This was because the higher the cultivation of the death soldiers, the stronger the might of their self-destruction. The more terrifying the destructive power produced, the higher the chance of killing Yu Haoran. Qin Tianyi couldn't say why he hated Yu Haoran so much, to the extent that he didn't hesitate to join hands with Meng Sheng. Peak of first-grade martial saint, Meng Sheng said with great pride. After all, death soldiers were different from subordinates. The cultivation of death soldiers had to start by selecting many young children who had an innate ability. While their minds were still not fully developed, they had to be instilled with the idea of loyalty. In the subsequent cultivation process, the methods used were even more cruel and bloody. Among 100 young children, no more than 5 would be able to survive in the end. More importantly, the amount of resources required to cultivate death soldiers was an astronomical figure. Ordinary forces simply couldn't afford it. Chapter 720. In the third prince's palace in the imperial palace. Not enough. Qin Tianyi shook her head and explained to Meng Sheng, who had provided her with the cultivation of a peak first-grade martial saint. Meng Sheng, you checked with your divine sense just now. The black bear beside you, Haoran, has successfully broken through to the 4th-rank martial saint realm. Moreover, his master, Feng Qingyun, is a person that even I can't see through. Therefore, a martial saint at the peak of the 1st-rank martial saint realm won't be able to destroy the pill that Yu Haoran is refining, let alone kill him. Then what do you think we should do? Qin Tianyi's explanation made Meng Sheng stop smiling. He couldn't help but ask in annoyance. Other than the martial saint realm men of sacrifice, how many martial royal realm men of sacrifice do you have? Qin Tianyi frowned and thought for a while before she suddenly asked. I have a total of 6 martial royal realm men of sacrifice from the 1st rank to the 7th rank. In order to kill Yu Haoran, Meng Sheng didn't hide anything. If that's the case, Qin Tianyi's frown instantly eased when she heard that Meng Sheng had 6 martial royal realm experts. Then, she took out 6 fist-sized black balls from her storage ring and placed them on the table in front of Meng Sheng. Meng Sheng, send out all 6 martial royal realm men of sacrifice. If we do this, in order to ensure the secrecy of the plan, Qin Tianyi didn't tell Meng Sheng the plan. Instead, she used her divine sense to communicate with him. Okay, let's do this. After hearing Qin Tianyi's plan, Meng Sheng slammed the table and agreed excitedly. There's no time to lose. Take advantage of the fact that Yu Haoran is at a critical moment in refining the pill. Go and arrange it as soon as possible. Qin Tianyi's eyes flashed with excitement when she saw that Meng Sheng agreed to sacrifice 6 martial royal realm men of sacrifice. Okay, I'll do it right away. Meng Sheng nodded and left the palace excitedly. After Meng Sheng left, Qin Tianyi also stood up and left the palace. She stood at the entrance of the palace and looked in the direction of the Qingyuan Guild Hall. 6 martial emperor death-sworn and the black saliva ball as bait, the final trump card of a peak first-grade martial saint death-sworn. Yu Haoran, if you still can't die like this, it can only mean that the heavens are looking after you. I, Qin Tianyi, am also willing to admit defeat. In Qingya Pavilion, as the last spark and flame in the pill furnace were wrapped up by the imprint and merged with the spiritual liquid, the shadow of the pill fire automatically dispersed and returned to the pill furnace. Yu Haoran hurriedly used his spiritual will to guide the spirit liquid that had fused with Flamingo's blood essence energy back into the core of the pill furnace. Everything returned to normal. Now that they could no longer feel the energy fluctuations coming from the pill furnace, whether it was Feng Qingyun, Chu Zhongyu, or the others, they couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. After all, the continuous impact of power earlier had already pushed their essence, energy, and physical strength to the limit. If the impact of the power continued, they would have no choice but to temporarily retreat from the Qingyao Pavilion. Subsequently, Chu Zhongyu and the others nodded to Feng Qingyun and then sat down cross-legged. They began to use the opportunity of the rapid consumption and recovery of their essence energy to break through the bottleneck that had been reached. In this regard, as the master, Feng Qingyun not only needed to continue to help Yu Haoran monitor the surrounding situation, but also needed to protect the few disciples who were breaking through. It could be said that it was very difficult. However, not only did Feng Qingyun not have the slightest dissatisfaction, his face revealed a gratified smile. Compared to Feng Qingyun's relaxed expression, Yu Haoran, who was sitting cross-legged in front of the pill furnace, not only did not relax because of the success of Flamingo's blood essence, but his expression became more dignified. The process of tearing the two flames was actually equivalent to the process of melting and refining the spiritual medicine. In other words, the extremely dangerous flame tearing just now was only the completion of the initial refining of the nirvana pill. And the most difficult and most uncertain part of the pill condensation had not officially begun. Taking a deep breath, his right hand continued to press on the pill furnace, using the pill fire to warm the spiritual liquid in the pill furnace. He swallowed a large number of pills to recover his essence energy and began to recall the method of condensing the nirvana pill. It was different from the method of refining the 5 Lives mysterious gate pill and the Ice Hard Jade Bone pill. As a pill formula created by an ancient almighty pill god, the method of condensing the nirvana pill not only consumed a lot of soul power and essence energy, but the hand seals were also more complicated and varied. Along with the soul power in his sea of consciousness and the essence energy in his dantian recovering to the peak, Yu Haoran still did not have absolute confidence that he could completely perform the method of condensing the pill in one go. Therefore, in order to ensure the success of condensing the pill, he simply closed his eyes and concentrated on practicing the method of condensing the pill. In the face of Yu Haoran's sudden action of closing his eyes in contemplation, whether it was Feng Qingyun or the experts hidden in the void, their faces revealed puzzled expressions. Because with their experience, although they were not proficient in pill Dao, they knew and saw the refining process of many top pills. However, there had never been any kind of pill refinement that required Yu Haoran to stop halfway and meditate like he had done. What's more, among the experts hidden in the void, there were experts who were truly proficient in pill Dao. It was also from the mouths of a few experts who were proficient in pill Dao that everyone knew that Yu Haoran's contemplation was very likely to be practicing the method of condensing the pill. To be able to make Yu Haoran, who had successfully refined the 5 Lives mysterious gate pill, to practice the method of condensing the pill through contemplation, everyone was filled with a strong interest in what kind of pill he was going to refine next. 15 minutes. After practicing the method of condensing the pill for a full 15 minutes, Yu Haoran suddenly opened his eyes. Immediately after, he withdrew his right hand that was pressing on the pill furnace, and then his 10 fingers quickly formed a seal. This is the method of condensing the pill from ancient times. Just as Yu Haoran's hands quickly formed a seal and began to condense the pill, an expert in pill Dao who had also reached the Grandmaster realm in the void could not control the shock in his heart and cried out involuntarily. After hearing the Grandmaster Realm expert cry out involuntarily, whether it was Emperor Qin, who was the strongest at the scene, or Feng Qingyun, who was standing in the courtyard, their faces revealed incomparably shocked expressions. The method of condensing the pill from ancient times was generally passed down in the top forces, and many pill masters who had reached a certain level had also specially cultivated it. However, the number of pill masters who could truly comprehend and successfully use it was as few as Emperor Wu. They had only heard of it, but had never seen it before. No one would have thought that Yu Haoran, who was only at the Grandmaster realm in Pill Dao, would not only grasp the method of condensing the pill from ancient times, but also be able to successfully use it. How could this not shock the experts hidden in the void? Prince Yifeng, who had condensed his spirit sense into a body, couldn't help but shake his head with a bitter smile as he looked at Emperor Qin with a frown. Chapter 721. In the void above the Qingya Pavilion. No wonder Emperor Qin was willing to betroth his most beloved and most talented princess Ling Fei to Yu Haoran. It turned out that he had long discovered Yu Haoran's amazing talent in alchemy and was trying to win him over in advance. Many experts at the scene were impressed and fearful of the Qin Emperor's foresight and means. Feeling the gazes of the crowd, the Qin Emperor maintained a calm expression. However, his heart was the same as everyone else's. He was also in a state of shock. At the same time, he was also like everyone else. He did not know that Yu Haoran had mastered and could perform the ancient pill condensing technique. Back then, he had decided to betroth his most beloved daughter, Ling Fei, to Yu Haoran. Firstly, his powerful cultivation allowed him to discover that Ling Fei had feelings for Yu Haoran when they parted in the palace, so he wanted to fulfill his daughter's wish. Secondly, through careful investigation, he found that Yu Haoran was a person who valued friendship and righteousness. In the future, he would definitely treat his daughter well. Third, it was his instinct as a powerhouse. He instinctively felt that Yu Haoran was extraordinary. Therefore, betrothing Princess Ling Fei to Princess Ling Fei had nothing to do with whether Yu Haoran had mastered the ancient pill condensing technique or not. Yu Haoran, who did not know that the ancient pill condensing technique he was using had shocked the experts in the void above him, was fully immersed in the pill condensing technique. Although after more than 10 evolutions, he had already memorized the alchemy technique. However, he was not as confident as he was now that he could perform the alchemy technique in one go. This was because the alchemy technique in ancient times became more difficult, more complicated, and more varied. However, when he performed 2/3 of the pill condensing technique, which was the crucial step that he was not completely sure of, the alchemy insights that he had gained from exploring countless ruins in his previous life were attracted by the ancient pill condensing technique and emerged one after another. While improving his alchemy insights, it also allowed him to easily take the most difficult and crucial step of the ancient pill condensing technique. Genius, Yu Haoran is definitely a rare alchemy genius in the profound sky continent. In the future, it is very likely that he will become a pill emperor. After seeing that Yu Haoran had successfully passed the most likely step of the alchemy technique, the alchemy grandmaster who had cried out in shock could not help but praise him again. Regarding this, not only did none of the peak experts present object, but they all nodded in agreement. Just as Yu Haoran didn't dare to relax in the slightest as he continued to compress and condense the spirit liquid in the pill furnace, 7 black-clothed men suddenly appeared in the Clear Source Guild Hall. Although the attention of Feng Qingyun and the experts in the sky were all focused on Yu Haoran and did not notice the black-clothed people who had quietly snuck into the Pure Yuan Guild Hall, He Xiong, who adhered to his duties and was extremely vigilant, was the first to discover the 7 black-clothed experts who had snuck into the Pure Yuan Guild Hall. Standing up from the corner of the courtyard wall, He Xiong growled at Feng Qingyun and then jumped over the wall to chase after the 7 black-clothed people who had snuck into the Pure Yuan Guild Hall. Regardless of whether the black-clothed people's target was his master or not, in order to ensure that his master could successfully complete the pill refinement, he had to eliminate the danger in its budding state. This was the reason why He Xiong chose to take the initiative to attack. After receiving He Xiong's warning, Feng Qingyun hurriedly retracted his gaze. He spread out his martial saint realm divine sense and used a special power of law to sense the source of the danger. The special power of law sensed that the source of the danger was the black-clothed people who had just snuck into the Pure Yuan Guild Hall. Therefore, Feng Qingyun immediately used his divine sense to inform He Xiong to keep the enemy outside the Pure Elegance Pavilion. The actions of He Xiong and Feng Qingyun attracted the attention of Emperor Qin at the same time. The divine sense of a second tribulation, quasi-martial, venerable expert instantly locked onto the 7 black-clothed people. After sensing the aura of the black-clothed people without any fluctuations of emotion, he immediately knew that these 7 black-clothed people were the death warriors raised by the top clans. In the entire Xianyang city, apart from the imperial family, only the top 4 clans had the strength to raise martial saint realm death warriors. Among the 4 clans, only Meng Sheng of the Meng clan had an undying hatred with Yu Haoran. Thinking of this, Emperor Qin directly cast a questioning gaze at the Meng clan's old ancestor. Seeing Emperor Qin's questioning gaze, the Meng clan's old ancestor couldn't help but frown. In the end, he suppressed his anger and used his divine sense to ask, "Your Majesty, what do you mean?" The reaction of the Meng clan's old ancestor caused Emperor Qin to frown and have no choice but to remind him. Carefully observe the 7 black-clothed people who sneaked into the Qingyuan Guild Hall. After hearing Emperor Qin's reminder, the Meng clan's old ancestor used his divine sense of a second tribulation quasi-martial venerable to instantly lock onto the 7 black-clothed death warriors. Different from Emperor Qin's speculation, the Meng clan's old ancestor could determine that these 7 black-clothed people were the death warriors of the Meng clan just by looking at the cultivation method of the black-clothed death warriors. Moreover, from the direction they were lurking in, it was obvious that they were heading towards the Qingya Pavilion. Their target must be Yu Haoran, who was refining pills. Who was Yu Haoran? He was a hidden dragon who could master and use the ancient pill congealing technique. In the future, he had great hopes of becoming a pill emperor. If he wanted to safely cross the heart tribulation and soul tribulation, and if he wanted to break through to a higher realm, Yu Haoran was an indispensable help. Originally, he wanted to wait until Yu Haoran finished refining pills, and then find a way to establish a friendship with him, so that he could trouble him to refine pills for him in the future. However, the black-clothed death warriors who sneaked into the Qingyuan Guild Hall and planned to sneak attack Yu Haoran turn out to be the death warriors of the Meng clan. How could this not make the Meng clan's old ancestor angry? The body condensed from divine sense flashed and appeared in front of the martial Saint Death warrior. Before he could react, the Meng clan's old ancestor directly knocked him out with a palm. Then, using the soul-searching secret technique, he began to check the martial Saint Death warrior's memories. While the Meng clan's old ancestor was checking the martial Saint Death warrior's memories, the Black Bear also relied on its first grade Sage Realm strength to quietly finish off the other 6 martial Emperor Death warriors. Moreover, it found 6 4th-grade black saliva balls on their bodies that could threaten martial saints. Meng Sheng, through the soul-searching secret technique to check the martial Saint Death warrior's memories, the Meng clan's old ancestor knew who the mastermind behind the scenes was. However, the mastermind behind the scenes made him angry and helpless. Zhengkai, don't tell me you plan to continue protecting him? Seeing the Meng clan's old ancestor who had smashed the martial Saint Death warrior with a palm and returned to the void, Emperor Qin sighed and asked, "After all, he is the only child of my bloodline." The Meng clan's old ancestor called Zhengkai said with a helpless expression. Chapter 722. In the sky above the Qingya Pavilion. Your Majesty, what do you mean? Emperor Qin reminded solemnly. Meng Zhengkai's heart tightened as he hurriedly asked. Seeing that Meng Zhengkai was still unaware of the grave consequences, Emperor Qin couldn't help but remind him, Meng Xiang's oath. Damn it, Hearing Emperor Qin mention Meng Xiang's oath, Meng Zhengkai immediately recalled that when Emperor Qin rescued Meng Xiang from Yu Haoran and returned Meng Xiang, the Meng family had promised Yu Haoran some time ago. One of them was that Meng Xiang swore by the rules of the heavenly Tao to guarantee that the experts of the Meng family above the martial saint realm would absolutely not secretly take revenge on Yu Haoran. Otherwise, as the patriarch of the Meng family, Meng Xiang would definitely suffer a backlash from the rules of the heavenly Tao, and his soul would forever fall into hell. Among the 7 men of sacrifice that Meng Xiang had sent out, one of them was a martial sage man of sacrifice. Just as Emperor Qin had said, the moment the martial sage man of sacrifice made his move, Meng Xiang would suffer the backlash of the heavenly law and his soul would be destroyed. Spoiling a child is like killing a child. I was wrong. Meng Zhengkai closed his eyes and said in self-reproach. Then, a resolute aura rose from his body as he looked directly at Emperor Qin and said, "Your Majesty, since the Meng family is a subject of the great Emperor Qin's kingdom, then let's act according to the laws of the kingdom of Qin. I guarantee that I will give him a dignified death." Seeing that Meng Zhengkai had finally thought it through, Emperor Qin nodded and promised. At the same time, a trace of joy rose in his heart. Using the laws of the kingdom of Qin to deal with Meng Xiang was the promise he had made to Yu Haoran. Now, he could use this promise to eliminate the resentment in Yu Haoran's heart, so that he could obtain his forgiveness and the Ice Heart Jade Bone Elixir. After passing the most difficult step of refining the elixir, Yu Haoran didn't let his guard down. He continued to concentrate on using the pill condensation technique. He waited until the last imprint was perfectly imprinted on the pill furnace. Only then did he let out a sigh of relief. Then, he pressed one hand on the pill furnace and continued to use the furnace fire to warm the elixir, while checking his own body's condition. After that, he was surprised to find that he had only expended less than half of his soul force and origin energy when he had used the core condensation technique in a spur of energy. This situation made Meng Zhengkai was very puzzled. Closing his eyes, he carefully recalled the entire process of using the core condensing technique. Finally, he understood why the consumption of soul power and origin energy was so low. First of all, under the influence of the pill condensation technique, the insights of the pill Tao grandmasters and great grandmasters that he had obtained from exploring the ruins in his previous life emerged in his knowledge sea. While rapidly increasing his pill Tao cultivation, it also constantly increased the strength of his spirit, causing his spirit to rapidly increase. The increased soul power did not lose out to the consumption of soul power at all. Now, half of the soul power was consumed when he first used the pill condensation technique. Secondly, in the process of condensing the elixir, the spiritual liquid didn't stop devouring the heaven and earth spirit qi, so the amount of yuan li needed to form the imprint was very little. Since he had figured out his situation, Yu Haoran didn't pay attention to his sea of consciousness and dantian anymore. Then, he used the spirit stones to recover the little soul power and yuan li. At the same time, he began to practice the last important step of refining the nirvana pill, which was pill division. Fortunately, compared to the pill condensation technique, the pill division technique was much simpler. He only practiced for less than 5 minutes, and he already knew what to do. When the elixir in the pill furnace reached the limit, the soul power and yuan li in the sea of consciousness and dantian also reached the peak. Without any hesitation, he retracted his right hand from the pill furnace. Then, he directly used the pill division technique and successfully divided 3 elixirs. Although the nirvana pill didn't need to withstand the lightning tribulation like the 5 Lives mystical gate pill and the Ice Heart Jade Bone elixir, the strength of the pulling force at the end was also related to whether the elixir had the nirvana effect. Therefore, the next step was to continue waiting. After nurturing for nearly 30 minutes, after feeling that the 3 elixirs in the pill furnace had reached the limit, Yu Haoran raised his head and asked Emperor Qin in the void, "Your Majesty, can you stop the heaven and earth spirit qi sealing array?" After hearing Yu Haoran's request, Emperor Qin couldn't help but frown and ask, Howren, what kind of elixir are you refining that requires hundreds of years of accumulated spirit qi in the city? It wasn't that he was distressed about the consumption of spirit qi, but he was very interested in the elixir that Yu Howren was refining. Your Majesty, you just have to turn off the sealing array. You will know when the elixir is completed. After Yu Howren kept him in suspense, he took out 18 four-stage first-rank spirit stones from his storage ring, threw them all to Feng Qingyun, and instructed, Master, when the elixir is completed, listen to my command and break the spirit stones. Understood. Nodding heavily, Feng Qingyun used his divine sense to control the 18 spirit stones, making them float in front of his eyes so that he could break the four-stage first-rank spirit stones in time. After everything was ready, Yu Howren took a deep breath, then suddenly pressed his hands on the pill furnace and shouted, Elixir is completed. Chong, chong, chong. Accompanied by Yu Howren's shout, 3 high-pitched cries of the phoenix came from the pill furnace. The cries resounded through the sky, and everyone in Xianying City could hear it clearly. In the Imperial Palace, in the Third Prince's Palace, after hearing the cries of the phoenix, Qin Tianyi immediately used his divine sense to check the situation in Qingyao Pavilion. Then, his face revealed a trace of a bitter smile, knowing that his carefully arranged plan had completely failed. However, failure was failure. Qin Tianyi didn't care much. After all, the death soldiers that planned to sneak attack Yu Howren were arranged by Meng Sheng and had nothing to do with him. Meng clan, in a beautiful courtyard in the backyard. Meng Sheng, who also heard the cries of the phoenix, quickly used his divine sense to check, just like Qin Tianyi. When he found that Yu Howren was about to succeed in refining the elixir, and 7 black-clothed death soldiers were lying side by side in front of Qingyao Pavilion's courtyard, Meng Sheng's face couldn't help but change. Then, he roared very angrily and directly left the Meng clan, going straight to the Imperial Palace, intending to discuss with Qin Tianyi how to continue the plan to take revenge on Yu Howren. In Qingyao Pavilion, accompanied by the high-pitched cries, 3 phoenixes with noble expressions, with a body size of more than 70 meters, flapped their wings and flew out from the pill furnace, and then directly flew into the sky. With a body size of more than 70 meters and a height of hundreds of meters, almost everyone in Xianying City could clearly see it. After ordinary people saw the phoenixes, they knelt down and shouted, Long live the Emperor! Long live the Emperor! Warriors with a certain level of cultivation used their martial skills and quickly rushed to the Qingyuan Guild Hall, where the phoenixes appeared. Chapter 723. In the air above Qingyao Pavilion, the 3 divine beast phoenixes that flew out of the cauldron stood back to back in a triangular formation. Then they opened their thin beaks and inhaled the dense spiritual qi of heaven and earth in Xianying City. The dense spiritual qi of heaven and earth surged like a surging sea and entered the bodies of the 3 divine beast phoenixes. Rebirth, rebirth, 4th tier, 3rd rank Nirvana pill. When the pill master heard the cries of the strange beasts in the cauldron, he felt a faint sense of familiarity. When he saw the 3 divine beast phoenixes fly out of the cauldron, he immediately thought of the origin of the pill. Once again, he was unable to control the extreme shock in his heart and involuntarily cried out, Nirvana pill. When they heard the pill master involuntarily cry out the origin of the pill, the expressions of the dozens of powerhouses in the air changed, and they softly muttered to themselves. The Nirvana pill, other than having the heaven-defying effect of rebirth and rebirth, could also greatly increase the foundation of a martial honorable powerhouse and had the effect of assisting in breaking through to the martial honorable realm. Some of the powerhouses who reacted quickly were quickly replaced with excitement and immediately summoned their original bodies so that they could participate in the fight for the Nirvana pill. Raising his head to look at the 3 divine beast phoenixes that were crazily absorbing the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, Yu Howren directly stood up and used his divine sense, to carefully examine the situation of each divine beast phoenix absorbing the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Master, directly break 6 spirit stones in the southwest direction. Through careful observation, Yuhaoran quickly discovered that the divine beast phoenix in the southwest direction was gradually slowing down its speed of absorbing the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Its divine color was also gradually dimming, so he hurriedly instructed. His divine sense controlled 6 fourth-tier, first-rank spirit stones and instantly appeared in the southwest direction. Feng Qingyun immediately used his Yuan Qi to break the spirit stones. The spiritual chi within the 4th-tier, first-rank spirit stones had already completely turned into a liquid state. Faced with the pure liquid state of the divine beast phoenix in the southwest direction, which had already begun to dim, suddenly trembled and immediately began to absorb the liquid formed by the spirit stones. When the liquid within the 6th 4th-tier, first-rank spirit stones was completely absorbed, the divine beast phoenix in the southwest direction immediately self-destructed. Then, countless flames that contained a scorching aura converged to form a pill that was slightly larger than a longan. With a wave of his sleeve, Yuhaoran put away the pill, transformed from the divine beast phoenix. He didn't have time to check the quality of the nirvana pill and immediately instructed Feng Qingyun. Master, there are 6 4th-tier, first-grade spirit stones in the northeast direction. After hearing Yuhaoran's reminder, Feng Qingyun, who had been preparing, immediately moved and shattered the 6th-stage 4 first-rank spirit stones. Similarly, after absorbing the pure spiritual liquid from the 4th-grade spirit stone, the second divine beast phoenix quickly transformed into a nirvana pill and was put away by Yuhaoran with a wave of his sleeve. After that, Yuhaoran raised his head and looked at the last divine beast phoenix that was transformed from the elixir. When he saw that the last divine beast, the phoenix, was not only not slowing down in the slightest, it was even increasing in speed, he could not help but reveal an expression of ecstasy. This meant that the last nirvana pill's grade and effect might exceed 4th-tier 3rd grade. It had an unimaginable ability to restore and upgrade a completely collapsed foundation. In the void above his head, the dozen or so powerhouses who had rushed over in time also looked at the last divine beast phoenix with excitement. They began to sit cross-legged in their hearts and began to think about what price they would have to pay to exchange for this nirvana pill. 5 minutes. The last divine beast phoenix in the air swallowed the heaven and earth spirit chi for a full 5 minutes and let out a high-pitched cry before exploding. It transformed into a crystal-clear elixir, but inside it was a divine beast phoenix that spread its wings and flew high. Facing the last fully formed nirvana pill, although the dozen or so powerhouses in the void all revealed greed in their eyes, none of them dared to make a move to snatch it. In the end, they could only watch as Yuhaoran put away the last elixir. Taking out the 2 elixirs that he had just put away, Yuhaoran examined them carefully and discovered that the elixirs that he had refined had an unprecedented 3 grades. The first elixir that was transformed into the nirvana pill was of a 4th-tier 3rd grade, as expected. As for the second nirvana pill, its grade had reached the 5th grade of the 4th tier. But what shocked Yuhaoran the most was the 3rd nirvana pill, which was of a 4th-tier 7th grade. An elixir of this grade was a top-notch elixir that even the Valley Master and head elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters could not refine together. Taking a deep breath and suppressing the ecstasy in his heart, Yuhaoran put away the 3 nirvana pills and then looked up at the void. Howran, well done. The first person to leave the void and appear in the Qingyao Pavilion was Emperor Qin, who among the dozen or so powerhouses was the most qualified to be the first to congratulate Yuhaoran on his success in refining the elixir. Facing Emperor Qin, who had landed in the Qingyao Pavilion, Yuhaoran hurriedly cupped his fists and thanked him. Thank you, Your Majesty, for your help just now. If not for Emperor Qin's timely action to close the array that sealed off the spirit chi and provide sufficient spirit chi of heaven and earth, the nirvana pill would not have been successfully refined this time. Howran, with your relationship with me, Do you still need to be so polite? Faced with Yu Haoran's thanks, Emperor Qin pretended to be displeased and criticized him. In response, Yu Haoran could not help but roll his eyes. He knew that Emperor Qin wanted to use this as an excuse to mend their relationship. Hello, young friend. Not long after Emperor Qin appeared in the Qingyao Pavilion, a dignified middle-aged man in his 40s appeared in the Qingyao Pavilion. His tone was quite gentle as he greeted Emperor Qin. The ancestor of the Meng family, who is about to become a martial honorable, Yu Haoran asked tentatively. In fact, he had already determined the other party's true origin. After all, Meng Sheng's appearance was close to 70% similar to the other parties. Moreover, he was able to stand side by side with Emperor Qin. Other than the ancestor of the Meng family, who was about to become a martial honorable, there was no one else. In response, Meng Zhongkai nodded his head in acknowledgement. However, he did not say much. Because Meng Sheng had sent his men as sacrifice to launch a sneak attack, Meng Zhongkai knew that if he wanted to ease the relationship between Yu Haoran and the Meng family, he would have to wait until Meng Sheng was executed on the spot. Therefore, after a simple greeting with Yu Haoran, Meng Zhongkai left the Qingyao Pavilion in a flash and quickly returned to the Meng family. He called for Meng Xiang and Meng Yun and began to discuss how to obtain Yu Haoran's forgiveness. In the face of the temptation of the Nirvana pill, he was able to stay true to his heart. Looking at the ancestor of the Meng family who had only greeted him and left the Qingyao Pavilion, Yu Haoran praised him in admiration. Then, he looked at Emperor Qin and commented in a somewhat contemptuous tone. Chapter 724. In the Qingyao Pavilion. In the face of Yu Haoran's self-righteous evaluation, Emperor Qin couldn't help but roll his eyes just like before. What do you mean by sharpening your mind even more? If it wasn't for the fact that Meng Sheng sent out a death warrior to ambush you, Meng Zhongkai, who felt that he was in the wrong, wouldn't have been embarrassed to continue facing you. With Meng Zhongkai's thirst for strength, I'm afraid that not only will he not give up on the fight for the Nirvana pill, he will even ask you to help him refine the 5 Lives Mysterious Gate pill and the 3-line Spirit Cleansing pill that can help him pass through the soul tribulation. Haoran, since you and Feier are about to be engaged, then you are considered a member of the royal family. You should call me Imperial Uncle. Just after Meng Sheng left the Qingyao Pavilion, a middle-aged man who looked somewhat similar to Emperor Qin, but with more handsome facial features, more likely to cause women to scream, called out with a gentle expression. Haoran, this is Prince Yifeng, my younger brother. Seeing the handsome middle-aged man appear in the Qingyao Pavilion, Emperor Qin secretly raised his guard and introduced him to Yu Haoran. Yu Haoran greets Prince Yifeng. After hearing Emperor Qin's introduction, Yu Haoran hurriedly greeted him. Although he had never really come into contact with Prince Yifeng in his previous life, Yu Haoran still remembered his experience and fame. In his previous life, the Emperor Qin Kingdom had been in an unstoppable war at the beginning. The reason why it fell into a stalemate was because of this ambitious prince, Yifeng, who wanted to ascend the throne and almost caused the Qin Kingdom to fall apart. Until his rebirth, it seemed that Emperor Qin couldn't do anything to Prince Yifeng. Haoran, when your engagement ceremony is held, Imperial Uncle will give you a generous gift. Prince Yifeng didn't care about Yu Haoran's slight estrangement. He still gently expressed his goodwill. Thank you, Prince. No matter what kind of character Yifeng had in his previous life, or what kind of serious consequences he had caused to the Emperor Qin Kingdom, none of this had anything to do with him. Therefore, in the face of his kindness, Yu Haoran automatically removed the estrangement that had appeared subconsciously in his heart and thanked him warmly. It's not easy to refine a heaven-defying pill like the rank 4 Nirvana pill. I'm sure you're very tired right now. I won't disturb your rest. Sensing the change in Yu Haoran's attitude, Prince Yifeng smiled and bid farewell. Subsequently, he strode out of Qingyao Pavilion and executed his movement technique to return to King Yi's residence. Seeing Prince Yifeng leave the Qingyao Pavilion, Yu Haoran originally wanted to tease Emperor Qin, but after seeing his gloomy expression, he chose to shut up. In the Emperor Qin's family, kinship was far less important than the position of the emperor. Presumably, the conflict between Emperor Qin and Prince Yifeng had been going on for a long time. I am Su Hongwen. Greetings, Grandmaster. Just after Prince Yifeng left the Qingyao pavilion, an old man in a cyan robe with slightly gray hair and a ruddy complexion greeted him with a smile. Howren, this is... Seeing the cyan-clothed old man appear in the Qingyao pavilion, Emperor Qin immediately put away his gloomy expression and wanted to introduce him to Yu Howren, but he was immediately interrupted by Yu Howren's next words. Could it be that you are Grandmaster Su Hongwen, who is knowledgeable, omniscient, and known as Householder Qing Lian? Yu Howren asked in surprise. Yu Howren not only knew the cyan-clothed old man in front of him, but he was also very familiar with him. This was because they had fought more than once in their previous lives. Of course, the so-called fight was not a battle between life and death. It was a competition of their understanding of alchemy, as well as a differentiation of knowledge. Su Hongwen gave him the feeling that there was nothing in this world that he did not know, even if it was a secret from ancient times, the Middle Ages, and the recent ages. At the same time, Su Hongwen was also a knowledgeable person. Whether it was the main martial arts, the auxiliary system of alchemy, equipment, formation, talisman, and so on, it seemed that there was nothing that he was not proficient in. It could be said that in his previous life, apart from his enemies, Su Hongwen was the person who had left the deepest impression on him. Householder's good reputation is just the favor of my fellow Taoists. As for being knowledgeable, omniscient, and omniscient, that is just a rumor in the streets. Su Hongwen hurriedly said modestly in the face of Yu Howren's praise. Yu Howren, the old man in front of you, is not human. Facing the humble and polite Su Hongwen, Yu Howren wanted to continue praising him and use this to get closer to him so that he could understand some of the questions that had accumulated in his heart in his previous life. However, the thawing in his sea of consciousness gave him an unbelievable reminder. Thawing, what did you mean by what you said just now? Forcefully suppressing the shock in his heart, Yu Howren hurriedly asked. Yu Howren, don't ask too much. You only need to know that the old man in front of you is not human. You only need to have a good relationship with him, and there will be unexpected benefits in the future. Facing Yu Howren's questioning, Thawing was a little regretful that he had lost his voice due to excessive shock and attracted Yu Howren's attention. This was because the origin of the old man in front of him was too shocking, and he had existed for too long. If this were to be leaked, all the experts in the entire Tianxian continent would probably fall into a frenzy, and even the reclusive experts and Emperor Realm experts would be alerted. Therefore, Thawing could only violate their agreement and not reveal the true origin of the green-clothed old man. Back then, because of the 1 Qi into 3 Pure Ones technique, they had agreed not to keep any secrets. Yu Howren wanted to continue asking. However, considering that the situation at the scene did not allow it, he could only temporarily suppress the urge to ask and continue to deal with Su Hongwen. Perhaps it was because of Thawing's reminder just now, but when Yu Howren was in front of Su Hongwen, his attitude was obviously much more enthusiastic. However, it did not arouse the suspicion and disgust of Emperor Qin and Su Hongwen. After all, Su Hongwen's current identity was that of a grandmaster who was proficient in alchemy. Grandmaster Yu, just as Prince Yifeng said just now, it is not easy to refine a heaven-defying pill like the 4th step nirvana pill. I believe you are very tired right now, so I will pay you a visit another day. In a simple exchange, just now, Su Hongwen discovered that Yu Howren was also a knowledgeable person. Especially in terms of alchemy, he did not lose to him in the slightest. This made him want to continue the exchange. But seeing the displeasure on Emperor Qin's face, Su Hongwen knew that today was not the right time and hurriedly said goodbye. Grandmaster Su, you are both a senior and an elder. This junior should personally pay you a visit. Although he was also reluctant to let Su Hongwen leave, there were still many things that needed to be dealt with. Therefore, when he agreed to let Su Hongwen leave, he also directly asked for his residence. Grandmaster Yu, this old man likes to travel around and has never had a fixed residence. When the time comes, this old man will personally pay you a visit. Facing Yu Haoran's questioning, Su Hongwen smiled and refused. Then, like Prince Yifeng, he walked out of the Qingyao Pavilion and disappeared from the Qingyuan Guild Hall. The Meng family's ancestor, Prince Yifeng, and Su Hongwen, who were the most competitive for the Nirvana pill, only had a simple exchange with Yu Haoran before leaving. They did not mention the Nirvana pill at all. This caused the dozen or so peak powerhouses who were still in the air to gradually come back to their senses. Not only was it very rude to directly propose a trade for the Nirvana pill, which had a heaven-defying effect, but it would also provoke Yu Haoran's displeasure. It would not be beneficial for them to ask for his help in alchemy in the future. Chapter 725. In the Qingyao Pavilion. Haoran, I have a piece of good news. Are you interested in hearing it? The Qin Emperor asked with a smile after waiting for all the peak experts in the void to meet Yu Haoran and leave the Qingyao Pavilion after a short exchange. He motioned for Feng Qingyuan to move the 7 corpses in. Your Majesty, you know that I, Yu Haoran, am a straightforward person. I don't like to guess in a roundabout way. So, if you have any good news, just tell me. Facing Emperor Qin's act of keeping him in suspense, Yu Haoran could not help but roll his eyes and urge him. Shaking his head, Emperor Qin was not in a hurry to tell Yu Haoran the truth. Instead, he let him observe the 7 corpses in black. Men of sacrifice. Through the deathly aura emitted by the 7 corpses and the self-inflicted wounds on their palms, Yu Haoran immediately guessed the true origin of the 7 corpses. That's right, they are men of sacrifice. Seeing that Yu Haoran could discern the true origin of the 7 corpses through simple observation, Emperor Qin was a little surprised. He nodded and confirmed. Then, he continued to ask with a smile, Haoran, can you guess the origin of these 7 men of sacrifice? The Meng clan. Without any hesitation, Yu Haoran gritted his teeth and said. He had not only encountered men of sacrifice in his previous life, but he had also tried to raise them. He was very clear about the difficulty of raising men of sacrifice and the huge amount of resources needed. In the entire Xianyang city, only the imperial family and the top families like the Meng clan could raise men of sacrifice. Someone who could send men of sacrifice to ambush him, especially men of sacrifice in the martial saint and martial king realm, must have a deep grudge against him. There is no need to think too much about who it was. It must be Meng Sheng who wanted to kill him. However, when he thought about how Emperor Qin had agreed to his conditions when he handed Meng Sheng over at Qingyuan Peak, Yu Haoran could not help but ask, Your Majesty, according to our agreement, the Meng clan should not and would not dare to send men of sacrifice in the martial saint realm to deal with me. Didn't you mention to the Meng clan the conditions of the heavenly law oath? Haoran, don't misunderstand. It was Meng Sheng's decision to send men of sacrifice. It has nothing to do with the Meng clan. Seeing that Yu Haoran misunderstood him and the Meng clan, Emperor Qin quickly explained. The men of sacrifice of the martial saint realm were personally killed by the ancestor of the Meng clan, Meng Zhengkai. Meng Sheng of the Emperor of the Emperor of the Emperor, Meng Sheng of the Emperor. The of Emperor of the Emperor of the Emperor of the Emperor of Emperor of the clan of the Emperor of Emperor. At least he is. Hearing that the Meng family's old ancestor was willing to sacrifice Meng Sheng to protect the entire Meng family, Yu Haoran's murderous intent gradually calmed down. Meng of the of the sacrifice. Of black. But black gave him 6 level 4 black saliva balls before he took action. He said that he had found them from the bodies of the 6 men of sacrifice. Originally, Yu Haoran had planned to give the 6 black saliva balls to the eldest senior brother and the others, so that they could have a trump card to save their lives and turn the situation around. After all, these 6 black saliva balls were level 4. They had the power to directly kill martial emperors and seriously injure martial saints. However, the faint smell left on the black saliva balls caught his attention. Black, stop! Yu Haoran signaled Black to not move the 7 corpses for the time being. He carefully identified the smell left on the palms of the 6 martial emperors. Finally, he looked at Emperor Qin with a grave expression. Howren, what's wrong? Yu Howren's strange behavior just now made Emperor Qin feel quite puzzled. Looking up at Emperor Qin, Yu Howren thought for a moment and finally said, "Your Majesty, there is another person who wants to sneak attack me. Yu Howren, besides Meng Sheng." "Who is it?" When Yu Howren raised his head, the worry in his eyes made Emperor Qin feel uneasy. "It is your Majesty's most valued son, the third prince, Qin Tianyi." After saying the name of the murderer word by word, Yu Howren stared at Emperor Qin to see his next reaction and how to deal with it. "Are you sure?" Emperor Qin asked in disbelief. "Your Majesty, I have a secret method that can analyze the smell left on the black saliva balls." Facing Emperor Qin's question, Yu Howren raised the black saliva balls in his hand and pointed out. "Very coincidentally, I have been in contact with the third prince before and am very familiar with his smell. And the smell left on the black saliva balls is exactly the same as the third prince's. So, I can be sure that the sneak attack plan must have been set up by the third prince, who is better at scheming. He also took the initiative to provide the black saliva balls." At this point, Yu Howren couldn't help but sneer. "I think Meng Sheng is just a gun in his hand, a gun to kill people." "Howren, can you let me think about it?" Facing Yu Howren's confident speculation, Emperor Qin asked with a slight panic. Back then, when Yu Howren was refining the 5 Lives Mystery Gate pill, Qin Tianyi had incited and joined forces with others to cause trouble and destroy. She also didn't hesitate to severely injure He Xiong, so she had the motive to sneak attack Yu Howren. Moreover, 6 martial Emperor Realm Death soldiers holding the black saliva balls attracted the attention of Feng Qingyun and He Xiong. Martial Saint Realm Death soldiers launching a fatal attack was also Qin Tianyi's best method. So, Emperor Qin believed that his speculation was true. But what he didn't expect was that his most valued son actually wanted to kill his most valued son-in-law. This made him a little unsure of how to deal with the trouble in front of him. After all, the body in Qingyao Pavilion was only a body formed by divine sense, and couldn't deal with it as calmly and decisively as the main body. "Your Majesty, no matter what you do in the end, I won't have any opinions." Emperor Qin's slightly panicked escape made Yu Howren mistakenly think that Qin Tianyi had a very important position in his heart. Seeing that the engagement ceremony was about to be held, he couldn't bear to make things too difficult for him. In the end, he chose to take a step back and persuade him. "I know. I'll return to the palace first." Anxious to return to his main body and deal with the troublesome matter in front of him, Emperor Qin directly disappeared from Qingyao Pavilion after informing him. "He Xiong, deal with it." Pointing at the 7 corpses in front of him, Yu Howren ordered He Xiong. He Xiong's method of dealing with the corpses was very simple. First, he moved the corpses to a place where Yu Howren couldn't see. Then he opened his bloody mouth and directly swallowed them into his body. Although the smell of the 7 death soldiers' corpses was ordinary, they were completely cultivated with resources. The energy contained in the corpses was not inferior to the top spirit stones. Chapter 726. In the Qingyao Pavilion. "Master, thank you for your hard work." After He Xiong left the Qingyao Pavilion with the corpses of the 7 men of sacrifice, Yu Howren adjusted his emotions and turned to thank Feng Qingyun with a smile. "Howren, didn't I tell you before that I am willing to protect you, and it is also my honor?" Feng Qingyun waved his hand in response to Yu Howren's thanks. Then, he looked at Chu Zhongyu and the others who were breaking through, and said happily, "Howren, thanks to you refining the Nirvana pill, your senior brothers and junior brothers have gained a lot this time." After hearing his master's reminder, Yu Howren also quickly observed his senior brothers who were breaking through. After careful observation, he found that it was just as his master had said. With the help of the impact of the 2 flames and the attraction of the spiritual qi of heaven and earth during the process of condensing the pill, his senior brothers and junior brothers had gained a lot. For example, Wu Zhengjun, who had outstanding talent and potential, had advanced 3 whole realms after advancing to the next realm. Currently, he was already at the early stage of the 3rd grade martial ancestor realm. Even his second senior brother, who had the most ordinary talent and potential, had broken through a small realm and was now a second-grade martial great master. As for Gongsun Yuding, who had the potential to be a top genius, because she did not bear the impact of the flames, she did not have a deep understanding of the realms. As a result, with the help of the dense spiritual chi of heaven and earth, she could only break through two small realms. Seeing the outstanding performance of his senior brothers and junior brothers, he had more confidence in their ability to successfully complete the tasks he had arranged for them in the future. After that, Yu Haoran did not pay attention to his senior brothers and junior brothers who were either breaking through or consolidating their cultivation with the help of the remaining spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the Qingyao Pavilion. He took out the 4th rank, 5th grade Nirvana pill and gave it to Feng Qingyan. Master, this Nirvana pill is for you. Looking at the Nirvana pill that Yu Haoran gave to him, Feng Qingyun was obviously worried. Logically speaking, as a master, he should not accept the Nirvana pill that his disciple had painstakingly refined. However, the Nirvana pill's heaven-defying effects were extremely useful for his current state. With the help of the Nirvana elixir, not only could he continue to break through to the martial sage realm in a short period of time, but the Nirvana elixir also contained the special energy of rising from the ashes, which was unimaginably helpful to his further comprehension of the power of laws. Seeing the worried expression on Feng Qingyun's face, Yu Haoran knew what he was hesitating about, so he forced the pill bottle into his hands and turned to walk back to his room. Feng Qingyun looked at Yu Haoran as he walked into the room. He then looked down at the Nirvana pill in his hand and smiled in relief. After Chu Zhongyu successfully consolidated his breakthrough, Feng Qingyun urged him and He Xiong to continue protecting the other disciples. Then, he quickly returned to his room. He intended to use the Nirvana pill to further improve his cultivation and strength so that he could make his disciple proud in the upcoming engagement ceremony. Just as Yu Haoran was using the 7th grade 4th level Nirvana pill to repair his collapsed foundation, for major events occurred in Xianyang City that shook the entire empire. The first event that shook the entire nation, although it was only spread among the ordinary citizens and low-level martial artists, but the meaning behind it was far-reaching. It was rumored that the emperor of the Emperor Qin Kingdom was the reincarnation of the divine dragon of the 9th heaven, who was protected by the heavens and earth. He was invincible and invincible. The reincarnation of the divine dragon was to unify the profound sky continent and establish a prosperous and prosperous homeland where everyone lived and worked in peace. The birth of the 3 divine beasts, the phoenixes, was to awaken the true dragon's consciousness from its slumber and officially start the conquest of the Emperor Qin Kingdom to unify the world. Regarding the rumor of the true dragon's reincarnation, experts of the martial ancestor realm and above only treated it as a joke and laughed it off. But to Xianyang City and the aristocratic families of the Emperor Qin Kingdom, only they themselves knew how important and terrifying this rumor was. The second event that shook the entire nation was that Qin Fengxiu, the son of the Assistant Minister of Rights, Qin Jichang, offended the emperor's will and attempted to sneak attack the emperor's son-in-law outside the city, causing the latter to be seriously injured. After the Ministry of Justice's interrogation, the emperor approved to directly behead him outside the Meridian Gate. At the same time, the Assistant Minister of Rights, Qin Jichang, was removed from his position. The crime of a mere Assistant Minister of Rights' son would not have caused such a big stir. But the joint petition of 100 Confucian scholars and the action of tens of thousands of Confucian scholars kneeling in the North City truly shocked the entire Xianyang City. What shocked the entire city even more was that the emperor, who had always followed the principles of Confucianism and regarded Confucian scholars as pillars of the city, not only tore up the petition on the spot, but also ordered the imperial guards to forcibly expel the tens of thousands of Confucian scholars kneeling in the North City. If the matter ended like this, it would only alarm Xianyang City at most, and it would not affect the entire Qin Kingdom. But when the officials of the Ministry of Justice asked to behead Qin Fengxiu, the 100 Confucian scholars who had jointly submitted a petition, The tens of thousands of Confucian scholars kneeling in the North City, and the tens of thousands of Confucian scholars who had rushed over after hearing the news all knelt in the execution ground and recited the Analects of Confucius, the book of holy studies, loudly to continue to plead for Qin Fengxiu. In the face of the joint petition of nearly 100,000 Confucian scholars, everyone thought that Emperor Qin would give Qin Fengxiu a way out. However, to everyone's surprise, in the face of the joint petition of nearly 100,000 Confucian scholars, Emperor Qin issued an imperial edict with only 3 words, 3 bloody words. Kill, kill, kill. At the same time, the imperial guards who guarded the imperial palace were directly sent out. Nearly 100,000 Confucian scholars, under the strangulation of the imperial guards whose cultivation was at least in the martial king realm, were completely strangled in just half an hour. The blood of nearly 100,000 people dyed the entire execution ground into a sea of blood. From then on, the execution ground was called the Confucian Pit. What was even more unexpected was that the imperial guards who strangled the 100,000 Confucian scholars did not stop killing. Instead, under the leadership of their respective commanders, they directly destroyed the mansions of the 100 Confucian scholars and burned all the books left behind by the Confucian scholars. And this action was called the burning of books and burying of Confucian scholars. The third thing that caused a sensation in the country was Meng Sheng, the heir of the Meng clan, the #1 aristocratic family in Xianyang City. He was sentenced to be hanged for 108 heinous crimes, such as being vulgar, arrogant, and domineering, privately setting up a torture chamber, raping women, and killing people on the street. Later, because the emperor remembered the outstanding merits of the Meng clan's ancestors and the Meng clan's sons who fought in the battlefield, he specially changed the hanging to the death penalty, which was personally carried out by the Imperial Guard's chief steward Jiang, who was Meng Sheng. Not to mention Xianyang City, even in the entire Grand Qin Empire, there was no one who didn't know of this. Normally, unless they died in an accident, it was very rare for a disciple of an aristocratic family like this to be sentenced for violating the law, let alone die under capital punishment. Chapter 727. If the mysterious rumor of the true dragon, the bloody suppression of burning books and burying scholars, and a law of the Qin state that strangled Meng Sheng indicated the change of the Emperor Qin, then what happened next showed the determination of Emperor Qin to conquer the world. Qin Tianyi, the third prince who was highly valued by Emperor Qin, had great hopes to inherit the orthodoxy and ascend to the throne. Because of bad conduct, disloyalty, unfilial, inhumane, and unrighteous, he was removed by Emperor Qin and demoted to a commoner. Who is Qin Tianyi? That is the younger generation of Qin state who is more influential than Meng Sheng. Not only do ordinary people think that he can eventually inherit the orthodoxy, but those aristocratic families also secretly rely on Qin Tianyi, hoping to get the first opportunity in the future upheaval. The impact of Qin Tianyi's abolition was far more than the sum of the previous 3 things combined. Because with the abolition of Qin Tianyi, the power structure of the entire Emperor Qin state will undergo earth-shaking changes. When he learned that Qin Tianyi was demoted to a commoner and permanently suppressed in the imperial clan, it was Yu Haoran who had just used the 7th grade nirvana pill to not only successfully restore the damaged foundation, but also experienced a rebirth change. He learned from the 5th brother Huang Zonghua, whether it was burning books and burying scholars, or killing Qin Fengxiu at the Meridian Gate, whether it was poisoning Meng Sheng or suppressing Qin Tianyi. All of this can be said to show the determination of Emperor Qin to conquer the world, and it can also be said to avenge himself. After all, there are many ways to show the determination to conquer the world, and there is no need to take the risk of being crowned as a tyrant and make rebellious acts. Your Majesty, I, Yu Haoran, will remember your kindness. Looking up at the direction of the palace, Yu Haoran secretly promised. Right. After telling Yu Haoran about what happened in Xianyang City in recent times, Huang Zonghua suddenly thought of a very important thing and quickly reminded. 9th junior brother, a eunuch from the palace who calls himself Chief Steward Jiang has arrived. At this moment, Master is accompanying him in the reception room of the pavilion. For the busy Chief Steward Jiang to come to Qingya Pavilion at this time, it was needless to say that it was for the engagement ceremony tomorrow morning. Since it was related to his own happiness, Yu Haoran did not dare to be negligent and rushed to the living room. "Hello, Chief Jiang." Yu Haoran pushed open the door and entered his own place. He saw his master and Chief Steward Jiang chatting. Behind Manager Jiang stood a beautiful woman in her 20s. Her temperament was like an iceberg, but she possessed an exceptional appearance and a devilish figure. Although Yu Haoran did not know why Manager Jiang would bring a peerless beauty to see him, he did not make too many guesses as he greeted Manager Jiang. This old servant greets Prince Consort. He had known Yu Haoran for a long time, and their relationship was quite close. Therefore, he was not as reserved as before when he greeted him. "Chief Steward Jiang, why have you come here today?" Yu Haoran asked as he gestured for Chief Steward Jiang to take a seat and sat down beside his master. "Prince Consort, this old servant will introduce you." Manager Jiang was not in a hurry to explain when faced with Yu Haoran's questioning. Instead, he gestured with his finger and gestured for the beautiful woman behind him to come forward. He then introduced her with a smile. "Prince Consort, her name is Shi Xue. She is Princess Ling Fei's personal maid." "Chief Steward Jiang, what does this mean?" Yu Haoran frowned and asked in confusion. The second meaning. Faced with Yu Haoran's questioning frown, Steward Jiang first gestured for Shi Xue to stand aside before explaining. The first meaning is that Shi Xue will be in charge of all the etiquette for Prince Consort's engagement ceremony tomorrow. The second meaning is that before the wedding, Shi Xue will perform the duties of husband and wife on behalf of Her Highness. After hearing Chief Steward Jiang's explanation, Huang Zonghua, who had snuck into the reception hall, revealed an envious expression. After all, a peerless beauty like Shi Xue would be the object of desire of thousands of male disciples in the sect. But now, she was only a servant girl to warm the bed for the princess. Yu Haoran and Feng Qingyun couldn't help but frown. "Chief Steward Jiang, have you obtained Princess Ling Fei's consent? Have you obtained His Majesty's approval?" Yu Haoran asked in a gloomy tone. Sigh. In the face of Yu Haoran's questioning, the smiling Chief Steward Jiang couldn't help but sigh and confess in an indignant tone. "Prince Consort, Princess Ling Fei doesn't know." Although Lord Wanxing knows, he didn't object. After all, this was all arranged by the Imperial Clan Court. Yu Haoran couldn't help but sneer when he heard that the arrangement for Shi Xue to warm the bed had been orchestrated by the Imperial Clan Court. Outsiders might not know how Qin Tianyi was crippled, but don't tell me the Imperial Clan Court, who suppressed Qin Tianyi, doesn't know? It seems that they want to have a taste of Yu Haoran's revenge. "Prince Consort, you must not be impulsive." Hearing Yu Haoran's dissatisfaction with the Imperial Clan Court, Chief Steward Jiang, who was well aware of how terrifying the Imperial Clan Court was, hurriedly tried to dissuade him. The Imperial Clan Court is far more terrifying than you can imagine. Otherwise, why would His Majesty agree to something as absurd as harming Princess Ling Fei? "Chief Steward Jiang, the Imperial Clan Court may be very powerful, but do you think they can control my will, Yu Haoran?" Yu Haoran leaned back in a chair and waved his hand at Chief Steward Jiang to send him off. "Chief Steward Jiang, take Shi Xue back to the palace. At the same time, tell the Imperial Clan Court that I, Yu Haoran, do not need anyone to teach me palace etiquette, much less a servant girl to warm my bed, because I am who I am, and I am willing to become the dazzling firework for an instant." He then turned to Feng Qingyun and said, "Master, I'm tired. See Chief Steward Jiang off for me." Okay. Although Yu Haoran's final declaration had been a little too tragic, Feng Qingyun was very gratified and supportive of his choice. "Prince Consort, if I said that I was willing to do all of this, would you agree?" Shi Xue, who originally had a temperament as cold as ice and did not say a word, instantly melted when she heard Yu Haoran's solemn and stirring declaration. Moreover, her eyes were filled with anticipation as she asked, "I won't. Yu Haoran replied, coldly without the slightest worry. Prince Consort, it is Her Highness' fortune to have met you. Yu Haoran's categorical rejection didn't disappoint Shishue. She smiled happily as she left behind an ambiguous sentence. Nine junior brother, are you stupid? Giving away such a beautiful woman for free. Huang Zonghua grumbled after Feng Qingyun left the reception hall with Chief Steward Jiang and Shishue. Fifth senior brother, I'm tired. Yu Haoran interrupted Huang Zonghua's grumbling. All right, then you rest first. Your senior brother will take his leave first. When he saw that Yu Haoran's expression was a little gloomy, the astute Huang Zonghua immediately realized that there was a conspiracy behind the gift of a woman that he wasn't aware of. Chapter 728. I'm stuck. The sixth chapter will be after 9 p.m. February 2nd, Dragon raises its head. This day was not only the traditional day of spring plowing, but it was also an important festival for the divine dragon to pray for rain. However, to the citizens of Xianyang City, this day was not only a traditional festival, but also a day of celebration for the entire city. This was because this day was the day of the engagement of the Emperor Qin's kingdom's famous princess Ling Fei and the 100 Qi Gate's vice sectmaster, grandmaster of the Pill Dao, Yu Haoran. In fact, the entire Xianyang city had already become lively after the engagement was announced. However, the atmosphere reached its peak on the day of the engagement ceremony. In the imperial palace, the originally solemn and dignified atmosphere was rendered jubilant by the colorful lanterns and banners. In front of the Qingyuan Hall, the usually silent atmosphere used to entertain the courtiers had long been broken by the hubbub of voices and laughter. In the entire Qingyuan Hall, the entire palace was filled with an incomparably festive atmosphere. Prince Yifeng has arrived. Just as the many guests and courtiers in the Qingyuan Hall were chatting with a relaxed expression, a sharp voice announcing the arrival of the guests caused the lively atmosphere in the Qingyuan Hall to instantly become as quiet as an iceberg. At this moment, everyone present had the same thought. Why would Prince Yifeng, who is already at odds with the Emperor Qin, come? However, what made them even more shocked was that the eunuch in charge of announcing the guests announced the gifts that Prince Yifeng had brought. 9 Eastern Sea Bright Night, 9 Western Sea Jade Sun Pearls, 9 Northern Sea Deep Thought Pearls, and 9 Western Sea Setting Sun Pearls. It was the most representative pearl of the 4 seas. Princess Ling Fei's famous pearl had a good reputation. From this point, one could see Prince Yifeng's intentions. 9 pieces of Southern Region 4th Grade 9th Grade Warm Yang Jade, 9 pieces of Northern Region 4th Grade 9th Grade Fire Yang Jade, 9 pieces of Eastern Region 4th Grade 9th Grade Machine Yang Jade, 9 pieces of Western Region 4th Grade 9th Grade Solitary Yang Jade. The most representative, famous jade of the Eastern, Western, and Western regions also wanted to have the reputation of being a proud son of the heavens. It also proved Prince Yifeng's good intentions. High-grade Emperor Level Sword, Gale Sword. The pearls and jades at the front represented the reputation of Princess Ling, Fei, and Yu Haoran. The magical tools, elixirs, and treasures at the back represented his sincerity. Following the announcement of the eunuch, the handsome Prince Yifeng walked into the Qingyuan Hall with a warm smile on his face. This old servant greets Prince Yifeng. In the rear hall, Chief Steward Jiang, who was serving Emperor Qin, immediately used his movement technique to arrive at the front hall after receiving Emperor Qin's signal. Then, he greeted Prince Yifeng with an obsequious smile. Steward Jiang, we haven't seen each other for more than 10 years. Prince Yifeng couldn't help but sigh as he looked at his old face and thought of Chief Steward Jiang, who had taken care of him back then. 10 years and 3 months. After hearing Prince Yifeng's sigh, Steward Jiang immediately gave an accurate number, indirectly proving that Emperor Qin had been thinking about him and was concerned about him. You're still so loyal. Regarding this, Prince Yifeng only praised Chief Steward Jiang. Then, he walked towards the treasured chair that had always belonged to him, but had never sat on it. Regarding this, Chief Steward Jiang couldn't help but shake his head with a bitter smile. Then, he He followed behind Prince Yifeng and entered the hall. The Grand Marshal of the Northern Expedition, Marshal Meng, has arrived. Just as Prince Yifeng was walking toward his throne, the eunuch's shrill voice suddenly came from behind him. Didn't this old fellow never join in on the fun? Why would he suddenly attend Feyer's engagement ceremony today? Hearing that the Meng family's ancestor, Meng Zhengkai, had personally come, Prince Yifeng frowned and muttered to himself. However, after hearing that most of Meng Zhengkai's gifts were top-notch spirit medicines and more than a dozen top-notch pill formulas, Prince Yifeng immediately knew what he was really thinking. In terms of identity and status, even though he was a prince and the emperor's younger brother, he was still slightly inferior to the Grand Marshal of the Northern Expedition, Meng Zhengkai. Therefore, Prince Yifeng could only turn around and take the initiative to welcome him. In fact, not only did Prince Yifeng take the initiative to welcome him, even Emperor Qin, who was in the rear hall, had no choice but to stand in the front hall of the Qingyuan Palace. This was because the expedition that was about to begin required the support of the Grand Marshal of the Northern Expedition, Meng Zhengkai, even if it was only in name. Grand Marshal, I didn't think that my niece's engagement ceremony would even alarm you. Prince Yifeng, who took the initiative to welcome him, seemed to be very enthusiastic. However, the meaning behind his words was sarcastic. A niece represented a junior. You, an old man, described your age. Prince Yifeng's sarcasm clearly carried a trace of humiliation. Unfortunately, Prince Yifeng still didn't understand Meng Zhengkai's character. Facing his sarcasm, Meng Zhengkai sneered and said, "Even you, a prince who has been missing for more than 10 years, have come. As the elder of Princess Ling Fei, why can't I, the Grand Marshal of the Northern Expedition, come?" Missing meant not showing up for a long time. Dying outside was a sneaky way of doing things. Meng Zhengkai's counterattack also carried a trace of humiliation. In the face of Meng Zhengkai's similar sarcasm, the smile on Prince Yifeng's face was instantly replaced by a gloomy one. His eyes flashed with traces of anger. If it wasn't for the fact that today was the engagement ceremony of Ling Fei and Yu Haoren, and that he was afraid of angering Yu Haoren, with Prince Yifeng's lawless personality, he would have already fallen out with Meng Zhengkai. Although his true strength was inferior to Meng Zhengkai's, with the power of the laws that he controlled, Meng Zhengkai couldn't do anything to him. Yifeng, how can you talk to Marshal Meng like that? Emperor Qin, who had long since sensed Prince Yifeng's hostility towards Meng Zhengkai, deliberately slowed down by half a step. It wasn't until the two sides were truly enraged that he finally appeared in the front hall and scolded Prince Yifeng in a low voice. In response, Prince Yifeng only sneered, then turned around and walked towards his throne. "Marshal Meng, please forgive me, Yifeng." Emperor Qin originally wanted to pretend to apologize to Prince Yifeng, but the voice of the eunuch suddenly came from outside the hall, interrupting his thoughts of apologizing. Emperor Qin didn't care about this in the slightest. Western Expedition Marshal Zhao Yuanshi has arrived. I didn't expect that the engagement ceremony of Master Yu and Ling Fei would even alarm this old fellow. After hearing the announcement from outside the hall, Meng Zhengkai teased with a smile. The four great families of Xianyang City were the first-ranked Meng clan, the second-ranked Zhao clan, the third-ranked Li clan, and the fourth-ranked Yin clan. Among them, the patriarchs of the Meng clan, Zhao clan, and Li clan were all quasi-martial venerables who had passed through a tribulation. As for the fourth-ranked Yin clan, although no one held the position of Grand Marshal, nearly a third of the civil officials in the court were from the Yin clan. Chapter 729. Flowers, whatever. PK. Let nature take its course. Outside Qingyuan Hall in the Imperial Palace. Ninth Junior Brother, listen to the gifts prepared by those people. Look at the betrothal gifts we prepared. I want to turn around and go back to Qingyuan Peak now. Huang Zonghua from the Qingyuan faction complained with a depressed expression as he stood on a flight of steps not far from Qingyuan Palace. Feng Qingyun and Chu Zhongyu, who were responsible for preparing the betrothal gifts, lowered their heads in shame when they heard Huang Zonghua's complaint. In order not to embarrass Yu Haoran at the engagement ceremony, Feng Qingyun and Chu Zhongyu had put in a lot of effort to prepare the betrothal gifts. Even Feng Qingyun, who adhered to Confucian etiquette, relied on his strength as a martial saint to rummage through all the treasure vaults of the 100-foot Sect's 36 peaks and gather a total of 36 betrothal gifts that they thought they could take out. Originally, Feng Qingyun and Chu Zhongyu thought that these betrothal gifts were enough to match Princess Ling Fei. However, when they heard that the gifts prepared by the ordinary guests were better than theirs, Feng Qingyun and Chu Zhongyu were too embarrassed to take them out. "Aaron, I'm sorry. It's all my fault." Now that the engagement ceremony was about to be held, it was too late to prepare a new betrothal gift. Therefore, Feng Qingyun, who felt guilty, couldn't help but blame himself and apologize. "Master, why are you apologizing?" Yu Haoran, who was not paying attention to Feng Qingyun, did not know that Huang Zhonghua's complaint had made his master and eldest senior brother feel guilty. "Ninth junior brother, it's like this." Seeing that Yu Haoran was distracted, Chu Zhongyu quickly told him about the betrothal gifts. So that's what happened. After hearing eldest senior brother's explanation, Yu Haoran chuckled and comforted him. "Master, eldest senior brother, I've already prepared the betrothal gifts for the engagement ceremony. You don't have to prepare them for me." Yu Haoran's consolation and understanding made Feng Qingyun feel even more remorseful. At the same time, he secretly decided that he could no longer be as carefree as before. He had to create a foundation for Qingyun Peak. "Master, eldest senior brother, it's almost time. Let's go." Seeing that the guests from the top and first-rate clans of Xianyang City had already entered Qingyuan Hall, he couldn't be too late for the engagement ceremony. Therefore, Yu Haoran greeted everyone before walking towards Qingyuan Hall. "Your humble servant, Qin Xingxin, greets the prince consort." When Qin Xingxin saw Yu Haoran, who was wearing a light blue robe and holding a silver-white jade fan, slowly walking over with a smile on his face, the attendant of the imperial clan court, who was in charge of receiving guests, hurried over to greet him. Yu Haoran nodded and planned to walk to the table that was responsible for counting the gifts. But at this moment, Qin Xingxin, who was in charge of receiving him, suddenly stood in front of him and ordered with a serious expression, "Prince Consort, today is your engagement ceremony. According to the etiquette of the imperial family of the Qin dynasty, you can't enter through the front door. At the same time, you have to change into the clothes that the imperial clan court custom made for you." Yu Haoran clapped the 1,000-bone fan in his hand, which had been modified by Thaling, and asked coldly, "What if I don't agree?" "Then I'm sorry, but I'm afraid you can't attend the engagement ceremony today." Qin Xingxin threatened Yu Haoran coldly. Ha! Faced with Qin Xingxin's cold threat, Yu Haoran suddenly took a step forward and asked with a gloomy face, "What if I force myself to attend?" "Then, Prince Consort, I'm sorry, but I'm afraid you have to stay in the dungeon of the imperial clan court for a while." In the face of Yu Haoran's pressure, Qin Xingxin's expression did not change at all. He clapped his hands lightly. Then, 3 experts in the martial sage realm and 10 experts at the peak of the 9th grade martial royal realm surrounded him from all directions. Looking at the 13 experts surrounding him, Yu Haoran took a step back and signaled his master and eldest senior brother to relax. Good. Yu Haoran looked at the 13 experts from the imperial clan court one by one, and his gaze finally stopped on Qin Xingxin's face. He said good 3 times in a row. Then he put away the 1,000-bone fan in his hand and took out a pill bottle from his storage ring. Then, he said with a smile on his face, "Qin Xingxin, I, Yu Haoran, will not attend the engagement ceremony today. I'll leave the imperial palace in Xianyang City now and return to Qingyun Peak." Yu Haoran actually gave up on the engagement ceremony today. Qin Xingxin revealed a smug smile on his face. But when he heard Yu Haoran's words before he turned to leave, his smile was immediately replaced by nervousness. "Qin Xingxin, before I, Yu Haoran, leave Xianyang City, I'll send the pills in the pill bottle to the imperial clan court." "Yu Haoran, what do you mean?" He did not even address him by his honorific title, but directly called him by his name. It was enough to show that the imperial clan court did not expect him to successfully attend the engagement ceremony today. In the face of Qin Xingxin's question, Yu Haoran opened the pill bottle and poured out a pill from it. Then, he explained with a chuckle. Qin Xingxin, the pill in my hand is called the spirit-slaughtering pill. It was created in ancient times by a great grandmaster who was proficient in poison pills and was about to break through to the elixir emperor realm. As for its effect, at this point, Yu Haoran's sharp finger covered the spirit-slaughtering pill with a trace of powder. Then, he flicked his finger at a 9th-grade martial royal expert who was surrounding him. Seeing the powder shoot at him, the peak 9th-grade martial royal expert revealed a disdainful sneer. He did not dodge the powder that shot at him. Instead, he mobilized his soul power and origin energy to create a second layer of defense in front of him. However, what terrified the peak 9th-grade martial emperor was that the powder Yu Haoran shot at them actually ignored the defense of their soul power and origin power. It easily penetrated the defense of their soul power and origin power. Fortunately, as an expert nurtured by the Imperial Clan Court, he did not lack defensive magic tools. A low-grade martial royal defensive magic tool promptly blocked the powder that penetrated his soul power and origin energy. But what made the peak 9th-grade martial royal expert feel despair was that the powder also ignored the magic tool's defense. After easily passing through the magic tool, it shot directly into his body and instantly merged with it. When the powder entered his body, pain, itch, soreness, swelling, numbness, and other feelings that could be understood and described instantly emerged. The peak 9th-grade martial royal expert could not help but howl miserably. At the same time, he used one hand to remove the itch and numbness, and the other hand to use origin energy to hit the soreness and swelling. It did not take long, only about a minute. Chapter 730. Inside the palace, in front of the Qingyuan Hall. The originally lively Qingyuan Hall was suddenly disturbed by an incomparably miserable howl. The hundreds of guests attending the engagement ceremony either stood up and left the Qingyuan Hall or used their divine sense to check the situation outside the Qingyuan Hall. However, whether they saw it with their own eyes or their divine sense, they were all stunned by the strange expert in front of the Qingyuan Hall. Seeing the pale and trembling Qin Xingxin, Yu Haoran kindly reminded him, Qin Xingxin, don't panic. This is only the physical damage caused by the spirit-slaughtering pill. Next, you will see how your divine sense is being torn apart bit by bit. Just thinking about it is thrilling. As for Chu Zhongyu and the others standing behind Yu Haoran, it was as if this was the first time they had seen the demon-like 9th junior brother. Their eyes were filled with intense fear. Gongsun Yuding could not help but move closer to her brother, seeking psychological protection. Enough! In a flash, he appeared in front of the half-bone, half-flesh subordinate and reached out to shatter his head and divine sense. After helping him resolve the unbearable pain in advance, Qin Xingxin roared at Yu Haoran. Don't panic! Facing Qin Xingxin's roar, Yu Haoran was not angry at all. He first waved the spirit-slaughtering pill in his hand before kindly reminding him. Qin Xingxin, the spirit-slaughtering pill in my hand is of the 1st grade of the 4th level. The poison it contains can harm anyone below the peak of the 9th level of the martial saint realm. Moreover, the poison of the spirit-slaughtering pill covers an area of about 5 kilometers. Although I don't know how big the Imperial Clan Court is or how many experts there are in it, the 3 spirit-slaughtering pills in the pill bottle should be enough to let you know the consequences of offending me. Yu Haoran. Yu Haoran, you won't have the chance to use the spirit-slaughtering pill to take revenge on the Imperial Clan Court. Faced with Yu Haoran's seemingly kind but blatant threat, Qin Xingxin, who had quickly calmed down, sneered and signaled the remaining 12 experts to attack. What's going on? Outside the Qingyuan Hall, General Manager Jiang saw Yu Haoran and the others surrounded by the experts of the Imperial Clan Court and asked with a gloomy face. A little eunuch who was in charge of counting the guests quickly explained the matter in detail. Deacon, this is too much. General Manager Jiang questioned after hearing the eunuch's report. even if your imperial clan court is in charge of the etiquette of the imperial clan's descendants. Today is the day of Princess Ling Fei and Yu Haoran's engagement. For the sake of the emperor, you have to back down. Now, not only did they prevent the prince consort from participating in the engagement ceremony, they even sent experts to capture him. This was a complete humiliation. Not only did it humiliate Yu Haoran and Princess Ling Fei, it was also equivalent to humiliating the emperor. Chief Steward Jiang, today's matter has nothing to do with you. It's best that you don't interfere. Otherwise, Eunuch Hai of the Imperial Clan Court will be very happy to see you. Qin Xingxin threatened coldly in response to Chief Steward Jiang's questioning. You. Hearing Qin Xingxin mention Eunuch Hai from the Jingshi Fong, Chief Steward Jiang's face turned pale, and a trace of fear appeared in his eyes. In fact, it was not only Steward Jiang. The surrounding eunuchs who were in charge of the engagement ceremony were also pale. Their legs were trembling, and their eyes were filled with fear. Master, how many of those 3 martial saints can you handle? Seeing that even Steward Jiang, who represented Emperor Qin, was unable to suppress the imperial clan court, Yu Haoran knew that he would have to start another massacre today. Therefore, he needed to know how many of the 3 martial saints Feng Qingyun could deal with so that he could decide what to do next. Haoran, give me 3 minutes. Facing Yu Haoran's interrogation, Feng Qingyun's answer seemed to be light, but the meaning behind his answer revealed his confidence. 3. Yu Haoran asked in disbelief. 4. Feng Qingyun, who was playing the zither, and Qin Xingxin, who was also a martial sage, were also included. Good. He did not expect that a nirvana elixir would not only cause his master's strength to change drastically, but also his personality to gradually become more domineering. Seeing such a joyous change in Feng Qingyun, Yu Haoran could not help but applaud. Then he directly activated the energy of the Power King Kong ape in his body and took out the purple rod. Yu Haoran roared at Qin Xingxin with a sinister smile. Qin Xingxin die. Qin Xingxin, who was already prepared, took a few steps back, then waved his hand at his subordinates and ordered. No need to capture him alive, just kill him. Don't worry, your opponent is me. Seeing the 3 martial saints take the lead, Feng Qingyun, who was standing in front of Yu Haoran, said with a chuckle. Then, he gently played the zither with his left hand. The sound of a zither turned into clouds and directly dragged the 3 martial saints into an illusory space. Then, he turned his head to look at Qin Xingxin, who did not intend to make a move, and said with a chuckle, Qin Xingxin, don't be idle. Play the zither with this peak master and talk about life. A mere peak master of second-rate sect. This deacon has no time to bother with you. Qin Xingxin said disdainfully in the face of Feng Qingyun's challenge. Unfortunately, Feng Qingyun's challenge wasn't just for show. The left hand on the zither quickly plucked the strings, and the sound of the zither turned into clouds and enveloped Qin Xingxin. Inside Qingyuan Hall, Emperor Qin, Prince Yifeng, the 4 great families of Xianyang City, and more than 10 peak experts of the first-rate sects have been using their divine senses to observe the situation outside Qingyuan Hall. When they saw that a mere deacon of the imperial clan court dared to expel and imprison the most famous prince consort, all of them looked at Emperor Qin with suspicion. Although the Qin emperor maintained a calm expression on his face, he was feeling rather depressed on the inside. After decades of ruling with an iron fist, the entire great Emperor Qin Empire was under his control. Only the imperial clan court, which was in charge of the etiquette of the imperial clan, regulated the character of the imperial clan's disciples, and taught them to grow up, was something he could do nothing about. After successfully overcoming the heart tribulation, the palace master of the imperial clan court, who had originally been a threat to him, could no longer suppress any of his thoughts. However, the woman standing behind the imperial clan court was the key to making him feel helpless. However, the depression in the Qin emperor's heart did not last long. After Yu Haoran took out the massacre spirit pill and introduced the power of the massacre spirit pill, everyone present could not help but gasp. They suddenly had a strong desire to possess the massacre spirit pill. This was especially so for Emperor Qin. The slaughter spirit pill's power was the best weapon for sieging a city. With the slaughter spirit pill, he could at least speed up his conquest of the world by a third. Chapter 731. In the palace, in the Qingyuan Hall. Just as Emperor Qin was thinking about how to exchange for a large number of spirit-slaughtering pills from Yu Haoran, Meng Jinkai's doubtful voice came into his ears. His divine sense carefully sensed the power of law that Feng Qingyuan was secretly mobilizing, and a bone-chilling feeling made him immediately guess what kind of power of law Feng Qingyuan was comprehending. When he thought about the experts of the Western region who also had this kind of special power of law, his original thought of treating Feng Qingyuan with courtesy because of Yu Haoran was immediately replaced by respect. Eldest senior brother, you guys stay back for now. Seeing his master easily drag Qin Xingxin and the other four martial saint realm experts into the illusory space, completely activating the blood essence of the large power King Kong ape, but still suppressing the transformed Yu Haoran, he turned his head and instructed Chu Zhongyu and the others. Regarding this, Chu Zhongyu and the others felt deeply helpless, but their hearts were also filled with hot blood. Helplessness was because it was clearly a joyous day, yet Yu Haoran insisted on seeing blood. Hot blood was because he recalled the scene when he faced the Qingchang sect at the sect's trial peak. When Chu Zhongyu and the others retreated to the stairs where they were observing the guests, Yu Haoran released the suppression of his transformation and roared towards the sky. Then, he waved the purple rod in his hand and charged towards the 9 martial king experts that were surrounding him. As his cultivation and strength continued to rise, he became more and more familiar with the use of the blood essence of strange beasts. He did not need to use any staff martial skills, and only needed to use the simplest 4 moves of the staff to easily take care of 9 martial king experts. Following that, Yu Haoran did not enter the illusory space to help Feng Qingyuan. Instead, he turned his head to look at the palace buildings close to the palace. After taking out the slaughtering spirit pill that he had just stored in his storage ring, Yu Haoran bent his legs and suddenly used all his strength to rush towards the palace buildings outside the palace. This is bad. Emperor Qin, who was in the Qingyuan Hall, thought to himself, this is bad, and immediately stood up to stop Yu Haoran. Prince Yifeng, who had been silent since he entered the hall, suddenly stood up and blocked in front of Emperor Qin. Your Majesty, I have something to report. Yifeng, get out of the way. Emperor Qin coldly reprimanded. Your Majesty, you are still a wise ruler. How can you refuse a subject's request? He was not afraid of Emperor Qin's reprimand at all. He looked at Emperor Qin like an iron-willed, ferocious subject. Yifeng, don't force me to make a move. The suppressed anger had already reached the edge of eruption. Emperor Qin gnashed his teeth and threatened. Since your Majesty is unwilling to listen to this subject's memorial, then this subject will speak another day. To Emperor Qin's surprise, Prince Yifeng actually cowered in the face of his threat. However, when he saw that he had already rushed to the top of the Imperial Clan Court and shot the 3 slaughter spirit pills into the Imperial Clan Court, Emperor Qin finally understood why Prince Yifeng had retreated. Yifeng, look at what you've done. After roaring at Prince Yifeng, Emperor Qin immediately left Qingyuan Hall and appeared beside Yu Haoran in an instant. Your Majesty, you're finally willing to come out. Without turning his head, Yu Haoran coldly asked, Haoran, don't you believe me? Hearing Yu Haoran's cold questioning, Emperor Qin also questioned with a gloomy expression. Your Majesty, if you encounter a fatal crisis, I believe that your Majesty will definitely save you. Yu Haoran nodded in agreement in the face of Emperor Qin's questioning. Immediately after, he angrily turned to look at Emperor Qin, suppressing the anger in his heart as he expressed his stance. But your Majesty should know that I, Yu Haoran, am a person who would rather die with a bang than live in humiliation. Therefore, even if I die at the hands of the experts of the Imperial Clan Court today, I will uproot the entire Imperial Clan Court. Haoran, for my sake, can you spare the Imperial Clan Court? After hearing Yu Haoran's solemn declaration, Emperor Qin couldn't help but sigh. In truth, he knew that Yu Haoran would definitely not tolerate the oppression of the imperial clan court and would definitely retaliate. He might even kill some of the experts of the imperial clan court. However, he had let it go for two reasons. One, to let Yu Haoran vent his anger for being humiliated, and the other, to give face to the imperial clan court. After all, it was Yu Haoran who had first rejected the imperial clan court's good intentions. When the anger on both sides had more or less subsided, he would step in to calm the conflict between them and then happily hold the engagement ceremony. However, he had never imagined that Yu Haoran would possess such a terrifying method as the spirit-slaughtering pill, causing a fatal deviation in his plan. Too late. In the face of Emperor Qin's request, Yu Haoran sighed and replied, "Haoran, is there no antidote for the spirit-slaughtering pill?" Upon hearing Yu Haoran's sigh, Emperor Qin immediately thought of an unbelievable answer. "I obtained the formula for the spirit-slaughtering pill from some ancient ruins." In truth, the composition of the formula was merely a whim of a poison grandmaster, and I just happened to succeed in refining it. In the face of Emperor Qin's questioning, Yu Haoran gave a half-truth explanation. If you want to refine the antidote for the spirit-slaughtering pill on the spot, let alone a poison grandmaster, even an alchemy emperor would be powerless. Your Imperial Majesty, Grandmaster Yu, is right. There is no antidote for the spirit-slaughtering pill. While Yu Haoran was replying to Emperor Qin that there was no antidote for the spirit-slaughtering pill, Householder Qing Lian, Su Hongwen, who had just snuck into the imperial clan court, took the risk of examining the toxicity of the spirit-slaughtering pill and appeared beside Emperor Qin and Yu Haoran, nodding gravely in agreement. After hearing Su Hongwen's final judgment, Emperor Qin roared at Yu Haoran for the first time. "Yu Haoran, in addition to the guards and experts we have trained, there are also many underage members of the imperial family in the imperial clan court. Can you be so heartless as to watch them die? Life and death are decreed by fate, and riches and honor are determined by the heavens." In the face of Emperor Qin's angry rebuke, Yu Haoran coldly retorted, "I, Yu Haoran, bear some responsibility for their deaths, but the greatest responsibility lies with the imperial clan court, with you, your Imperial Majesty." After refuting Emperor Qin's angry rebuke, Yu Haoran turned and left the imperial clan court, flying toward Chu Zhongyu and the others. Just as Yu Haoran returned to Qingyuan Hall, Qin Xingxin and the three corpses of the imperial clan court's martial saints fell heavily in front of Qingyuan Hall. "Master, are you all right?" Yu Haoran hurriedly asked in concern when he saw that Feng Qingyun's aura was slightly turbulent, but his complexion had not changed in the slightest. "Your master is fine," Feng Qingyun replied with a light smile. Then, he suddenly felt that the atmosphere was a little off. A miserable and painful howl came from the palace not far away, attracting his attention. "Haoran, how could you use the spirit-slaughtering pill on innocent people?" Feng Qingyun's divine sense swept over the imperial clan court. When he saw the underage youths, as well as the martial disciples, martial warriors, and martial masters, all painfully tearing at their flesh, he couldn't help but angrily rebuke. "Did I do something wrong?" Chapter 732. In the Imperial Palace, in front of Qingyuan Hall. In his previous life, he had used the slaughter spirit pill to kill more than 3,600 people from the enemy's clan in order to take revenge on them. Among them, there were also underage children, as well as martial disciples, martial warriors, and martial masters. At the time, he had only felt joy from taking revenge. He had not felt a shred of guilt, much less ask himself this question. Had he changed after his rebirth? Had his rebirth changed him? "Haoran, what are you thinking about?" Seeing Yu Haoran deep in thought and hearing the screams of pain from the imperial clan court, Feng Qingyun couldn't help but yell at him. "Hurry up and think of a way to neutralize the poison of the slaughter spirit pill. Then think of a way to save those poisoned people. Master, crush the pills in the bottle and scatter them on the imperial clan court." They can quickly neutralize the poison of the slaughter spirit pill. As for those who have already died from the poison of the slaughter spirit pill, not even a martial god or an alchemy emperor will be able to save them. In the face of his master's yell, Yu Haoran finally relented and took out a pill bottle from his storage ring. He tossed it to Feng Qingyun while explaining how to use it. He then turned and walked toward Chu Zhongyu and the others. When they saw Yu Haoran walking over, Chu Zhongyu and the others instinctively stepped aside. Gongsun Yuding's eyes revealed a trace of fear and disgust. Of course, only Wu Zhengjun and Lin Xian remained where they were. Zhengjun, 8th senior brother, don't follow me. Although he was a little disappointed that his first senior brother and the others had stepped aside, Lin Xian and Wu Zhengjun's persistence warmed his heart. He felt that his selfless sacrifice had been worth it. After turning to Wu Zhengjun and Lin Xian, who planned to follow him, Yu Haoran strode out of the imperial palace. He wanted to find a place where no one else was around to think. He wanted to think about how he should proceed in the future. Should he continue to stick to his previous lifestyle of doing whatever he wanted, or should he continue to be a kind-hearted hero who saved the world? You, how dare you destroy the foundation of my imperial clan court? My imperial clan court will not rest until you are dead. I, Qin Baijun, will not rest until you are dead. Just when Yu Haoran was about to walk down the steps and leave Qingyuan Hall, a furious roar came from the imperial clan court. Yu Haoran's footsteps paused as he replied indifferently, I'll be waiting. Then, he continued to walk, intending to leave the palace. However, the sudden attack from behind forced him to stop and turn around to look at Emperor Qin and Feng Qingyun, who were floating in the air above the imperial clan court. However, what chilled him to the core was that in the face of the rapidly approaching giant palm, both Emperor Qin and his master floated silently in the air. None of them chose to save him. Qin Baijun of the imperial clan court, you forced me to do this. Yu Haoran gritted his teeth as he raised his head to look at the rapidly approaching giant palm. His deep voice revealed a chill that made everyone present tremble. No! Just as the giant palm was about to hit Yu Haoran, a sad and tragic voice suddenly came from the backyard of the palace. Accompanied by a mournful and stirring cry, a beautiful young lady wearing a bright red bridal dress rushed over with tears on her face. She was so beautiful that no one could take their eyes off her. Ling Fei, I'm sorry. Just as the giant palm was about to hit him, Yu Haoran apologized to Qin Ling Fei, who was rushing over. If he had been willing to take a step back and accept the arrangements of the imperial clan court, then today's engagement ceremony would have been completed smoothly, and Qin Ling Fei would have become his woman in name. But just like what he had said to the Qin Emperor, he would rather die in a spectacular manner than live a lowly life in humiliation. Therefore, in the end, he chose a path that could make Qin Ling Fei hate him for the rest of her life. He did not regret it. The giant palm, which contained the power of a quasi-martial venerable, had not damaged the ground at all when it had killed Yu Haoran. This was enough to show the strength of the imperial clan court's master, Qin Baijun. Seeing Yu Haoran die under the giant palm, Feng Qingyun, who was floating in the air above the imperial clan court, suddenly felt a twinge of heartache. Then, he suddenly remembered that the person who had been attacked was his most valued ninth disciple, Yu Haoran. That's right. He was clearly my most valued disciple. So why didn't I save him? The special power of law trembled slightly, dispelling the fog that had covered his mind. Feng Qingyun immediately understood why he had not saved him. Disappointment. It was only because of Yu Haoran's overly cruel methods that he felt disappointed in his heart, that he had the thought of watching him get killed with his own eyes. Feng Qingyun knew that he was wrong, very wrong. Under the influence of extreme self-blame, Feng Qingyun did not fear the difference in strength between them. His eyes were red as he looked at the imperial clan court and the palace in the center of the imperial clan court. Yu Haoran was dead. Yu Haoran was actually dead. Seeing Yu Haoran die under the giant palm, Emperor Qin could not help but rub his eyes. He did not dare to believe that Yu Haoran, who he had promised to guarantee his safety, would die in front of him. Like Feng Qingyun, Emperor Qin also used the power of law he controlled. When he checked the reason why he had not saved him, he found that it was because of Qin Tiany's matter. Subconsciously, he had been blaming Yu Haoran. It was precisely because he had been blaming Yu Haoran that he had reprimanded him for the matter of the Imperial clan court and watched as he was killed by the giant palm. However, Yu Haoran had clearly stated that no matter how he dealt with Qin Tiany, even if he acted as if nothing had happened, Yu Haoran would not have any objections. Instead, in order to obtain Yu Haoran's forgiveness and obtain the Ice Jade Heart Pill for crossing the body tribulation, as well as the Nirvana Pill for rebirth, he had made the decision to abolish Qin Tiany. Now, not only had he lost the Ice Jade Heart Pill and Nirvana Pill, but his most beloved daughter had also lost the man she loved. An unsuppressible sense of guilt made Emperor Qin glare angrily at the Imperial clan court and the palace in the center. AI, my 5 lives profound gate pill, my 3 striped spirit cleansing pill. Looking at Yu Haoran who died under the giant palm, Meng Zhengkai, the ancestor of the Meng clan, slapped the armrest and sighed in vexation. The dozen or so peak experts sitting in Qingyuan Hall also reacted in the same vexed manner as Meng Zhengkai. Su Hongwen originally wanted to help Yu Haoran, but he was afraid that his identity would be exposed, so he kept his attention on Yu Haoran. After the giant palm formed of soul power and origin energy disappeared, he wanted to organize Yu Haoran's belongings so that he could hand them over to Qin Lingfei. Chapter 733. The 5th and 6th chapters would have to be postponed to the evening, in front of the Qingyuan Hall in the Imperial Palace. However, when Su Hongwen looked at the ground, which should have been filled with meat or blood, he was surprised to find that there was nothing there. There was not even a drop of blood on the ground, which surprised him greatly. Su Hongwen's cry of surprise also attracted the attention of the dozens of peak-level experts present, as well as Emperor Qin and Feng Qingyun. After exchanging a look, Feng Qingyun and Emperor Qin both appeared at the place where Yu Haoran had been killed. After checking with their eyes and divine senses, they did not find any trace of Yu Haoran's death. Could it be that he had a secret method of teleportation? Thinking of this, Feng Qingyun wanted to use the special power of law to sense Yu Haoran's safety. However, Wu Jingjun, who was standing in front of the Qingyuan Hall, suddenly walked up to Qin Lingfei. Qin Lingfei, who had just learned that Yu Haoran might still be alive, was wiping the tears from the corners of her eyes. When she saw Wu Jingjun, who was the closest to Yu Haoran and whom Yu Haoran trusted the most, walking up to her, she was filled with anticipation. Sister-in-law, senior brother asked me to give this to you before the engagement ceremony. Wu Jingjun walked up to Qin Lingfei and took out a jade slip from his storage bracelet. Then, he handed it to Qin Lingfei. Qin Lingfei stared at Wu Jingjun as she reached for the jade slip and asked in a trembling voice, "Zhengjun, tell sister-in-law, is your senior brother all right?" Huh? Faced with Qin Lingfei's question, Wu Zhengjun could not help but laugh wildly. Then he said arrogantly, "Sister-in-law, even if the sky above collapses, even if the ground under our feet sinks, even if everyone on the Tianxin continent dies, my senior brother will be fine." After that, Wu Zhengjun stopped laughing and returned to Lin Xian's side with a cold expression. Although Wu Zhengjun's reply was very arrogant, Qin Lingfei felt that it was like the sound of nature. After that, she took a deep breath and calmed the excitement in her heart. Then, she used her divine sense to check the contents of the jade slip. What was left in the jade slip were not words, but a few sentences left behind by Yu Haoran with the help of Thaling's divine sense. Ling Fei, if Zhengjun personally gave this jade slip to you, it means that there must have been a bloody battle between me and the Imperial clan court. And the result is that I will definitely be killed. When she heard the first message left behind in the jade slip, especially when Yu Haoran said that he had been killed, Qin Lingfei's heart, which had originally calmed down because of Wu Zhengjun's affirmation, suddenly became nervous again. Fortunately, the second paragraph that followed made her tense heart relax in an instant. However, Ling Fei, you don't have to worry. In truth, I already predicted that there would be a bloody battle between me and the Imperial clan court. I've already prepared a path of retreat, so there won't be any danger. The only person I've let down is you. If I had accepted the bed-warming maidservant arranged by the Imperial clan court yesterday and received the etiquette lessons of the Imperial clan court, perhaps our engagement ceremony would have gone smoothly. I'm sorry, Ling Fei. I can't let you down, nor can I go against the beliefs that I've always held in my heart. I could only choose to refuse the Imperial clan court's arrangements. But Ling Fei, don't worry. Give me, Yu Haoran, some time to prepare. I will definitely come to you on a rainbow cloud and give you an engagement ceremony that you'll never forget. Ling Fei, Zhengjun is my brother, a brother that I truly trust. I hope that you can help me take care of him while I'm away. After the message was left behind, the jade slip in Qin Ling Fei's hand disintegrated into a pile of white powder. The white powder drifted down from her fingers. Imperial Father, did the Imperial clan court arrange a maidservant for Haoran yesterday? Ignoring the white powder drifting down from her fingers, Qin Ling Fei tore off her bridal gown and asked with a gloomy expression. This, Emperor Qin didn't know how to answer Qin Ling Fei's question. Father, you don't have to say anything. I understand. Emperor Qin's hesitation allowed Qin Ling Fei to confirm the message that Yu Haoran had left in the jade slip. While indicating that Emperor Qin didn't have to answer, she looked up at the sky. Using her elemental energy, she cut open her palm and sprinkled the blood that flowed out of her palm into the air. Only when the mountains are flat and the heavens and the earth are united will I dare to break up with you. Haoran, I, Qin Ling Fei, swear by the rules of the heavenly Tao that I won't wait for you in this life, and I won't marry you in this life. If I, Qin Ling Fei, violate this oath, I will be struck by lightning and my soul will be destroyed. Following Qin Ling Fei's oath, the blood that had been sprinkled in the air slowly condensed into the word heart. When the word heart was completely formed and solidified, it suddenly broke in the middle. Half of the broken heart fell into Qin Ling Fei's hand, while the other half disappeared into the air at a speed that even Emperor Qin's divine sense couldn't track. With a solemn expression, Qin Ling Fei put away half of the heart and walked up to Wu Zhengjun with a gentle expression. Zhengjun, in the message that Haoran left in the jade slip, he specifically told me to take care of you while he was away. Speaking of this, Qin Ling Fei took out a jade pendant from her storage ring and handed it to Wu Zhengjun. Until your senior brother returns, you will be living in the Qingya Pavilion of the Qingyuan Guild Hall. If anyone in Xianyang City wishes to harm you, immediately crush this jade pendant and I will rush over as soon as possible. No matter who it is that wishes to harm you, even if it is one of my Imperial Father's men, I will punish them. After leaving behind her promise, Qin Ling Fei coldly glanced at the Imperial clan court before flying to the rear courtyard of the Imperial Palace. About 20 li north of Xianyang City, there was a simple pavilion used for resting. The second clone was sitting on a stone chair in the pavilion, while the black bear had shrunk its body and was crawling by the second clone's feet. The second clone, who had been meditating with his eyes closed, suddenly trembled as a powerful aura swept over him. Then the second clone stood up, and a person who looked exactly like him walked out of his body. When the second clone saw Yu Haoran, he coldly asked, "It's begun." Nodding, Yu Haoran raised his head and looked in the direction of Xianyang City, gnashing his teeth as he said, "Until one of us dies. If you need my help, just summon me." After leaving behind these instructions, the second clone returned to the victor in his main body's sea of consciousness. Ignoring the second clone's departure, Yu Haoran looked in the direction of Xianyang City, tears of sorrow flowing out of his eyes. He did not regret the bloody battle with the Imperial clan court, nor did he regret using the slaughter spirit pill to commit boundless sins. The only thing that he could not accept, and what pained him the most, was the cold choice of Feng Qingyun and Chu Zhongyu. Chapter 734. Outside Xianyang City, in the Wind Pavilion, Thaling, who had not interfered in the battle between Yu Haoran and the Imperial clan court, suddenly asked, Yu Haoran, where do you plan to go next? Yu Haoran fell silent after hearing Thaling's question. That's right. Where should he go next? He should leave the Emperor Qin's kingdom and go to the ruins he had ventured into in his previous life to increase his cultivation and strength. However, the ruins closest to the Emperor Qin's kingdom would take at least 2 to 3 years. This would violate his agreement with Qin Lingfei. If he continued to stay in the Emperor Qin's kingdom, with the Imperial clan court's strength and influence, as well as the Emperor Qin's change in attitude toward him, he would probably end up being hunted down like he had in his previous life. Although Yu Haoran was not afraid of this, he was very annoyed. Just as Yu Haoran was considering whether to leave the Emperor Qin's kingdom or stay in the Emperor Qin's sphere of influence to contend with the Imperial clan court, he suddenly felt a trace of vigilance. He raised his head and saw that half of a red heart character had appeared in his hand at a speed that he could not dodge. As the half of the red heart character landed in his hand, a painting of Qin Lingfei, cutting her palm with blood and using the laws of the heavenly Tao as the foundation, appeared in his mind. Only when the mountains are flat and the heavens and earth are united can I break with you. In this life, I will not wait for you. And in this life, I will not marry anyone but you. After seeing Qin Lingfei's actions appear in his mind, a trace of warmth instantly calmed the sorrow that had arisen from Feng Qingyun and Chu Zhongyu's cold treatment. As this warmth rose in his heart, Yu Haoran made the decision to continue staying in the Emperor Qin's kingdom, and he also decided where he would go next. Thaling, return to Fuyang City and investigate how my parents were killed. As for the decision to return to Fuyang City and investigate the cause of his parents' death, Thaling did not express any opinion, nor did he agree. He allowed Yu Haoran to make the decision himself. Because of the heaven-defying changes that had occurred to Yu Haoran when he had used the rank 4, rank 7 Nirvana pill to restore his collapsed foundation, Thaling decided to not interfere with Yu Haoran's cultivation and decisions as much as possible in the future, giving him the opportunity to grow independently. After making up his mind, Yu Haoran did not hurry to leave the pavilion. First, he took out the phantom mask from his storage ring and used the phantom mask to change his appearance and aura. Then, he shrunk the black bear to the size of a palm. After that, he left the pavilion and rushed towards Fuyang City. Pingyang City, within the Yu clan. Ever since Yusiki and Yu Haoran's stunning performance in the sex instigation competition last year, and they had successfully become disciples of the sex, the atmosphere of the entire Yu clan had completely changed. Regardless of whether it was the servants or the direct descendants of the Yu clan, as long as they passed by the courtyard of the Great Elder and the Blue Dragon Hall Master, they would appear to be very careful. They were afraid of attracting the attention of the Great Elder and Yu Hongyang and infuriating them. This was because in the 8 months since the sex selection competition ended, nearly 100 servants, more than 24 experts, and 3 direct descendants of the Yu clan had been indiscriminately killed by the Great Elder and Yu Hongyang on the spot. The extremely oppressive atmosphere and the danger of losing their lives at any time caused many foreign elders to choose to leave the Yu clan. As a result, the strength of the entire Yu clan had decreased by at least 30%. Fortunately, the Wu clan and the Chung clan, who had also felt the pressure of Yu Haoran and Yusiki's talent, did not take the opportunity to attack the Yu clan. Rain Reveling Pavilion. The 9th elder, who was sitting cross-legged in the cultivation refining room, slowly opened his eyes. After exhaling a mouthful of turbid air that had accumulated in his chest, his eyes revealed a trace of helplessness. Half a year. It had already been half a year since his cultivation had reached the peak of the 9th grade Martial Master realm. However, no matter how hard he tried, he was still unable to feel the bottleneck of the Martial Ancestor realm. This caused him to uncontrollably doubt himself. He doubted whether his talent and potential could only reach the peak of the 9th grade Martial Master realm. 9th Elder, are you there? Just as the 9th Elder was doubting his talent and potential, Lin Yun's voice suddenly came from outside the cultivation refining room. After Yu Siki and Yu Haoran displayed astonishing talent and potential and became disciples of the sects, Lin Yun, who had secretly protected the siblings for over a year, suddenly had his position in the Yu clan greatly increased. Even the Great Elder and Yu Hongyang, who had a violent temper and would kill people at the slightest provocation, didn't dare to look down on Lin Yun, let alone the ninth elder who directly led him. And all of this came from the hidden pressure of Yu Haoran and Yu Haoran. After getting up and leaving the cultivation refining room, the ninth elder saw Lin Yun standing outside with a flustered expression. He couldn't help but ask with a frown, "Lin Yun, what's wrong?" With the rise of his cultivation and status, Lin Yun's actions had become more steady. It was rare to see him so flustered, which made the ninth elder feel that something was wrong. Ninth elder, quickly go to the Great Elder's courtyard. The Great Elder and the Third Elder are about to start a fight over the successor of the clan, Lin Yun hurriedly said when he saw the ninth elder walk out of the cultivation refining room. After hearing Lin Yun's report, the ninth elder's expression couldn't help but change. He immediately used his fastest speed and went straight to the Great Elder's courtyard. Third Elder, I've already told you more than once. Even if the Yu clan patriarch position remains empty, I will never let a grandson, Yu Qing, become the successor of the clan. The Great Elder, whose anger was already on the verge of erupting, coldly looked at the Third Elder and directly shed all pretense of cordiality. Great Elder, it's been almost 20 years. Although the Third Elder was also furious that the Great Elder had directly shed all pretense of cordiality in order to send his grandson, Yu Qing, to the throne of the clan patriarch, he forcefully suppressed the anger in his heart and tried to persuade the Great Elder. I, Yu Hongqing, have been loyal to you for almost 20 years. In the past 20 years, I could be said to be a gun in your hand. I'll do whatever you want me to do. I've never gone against your wishes. Now, I hope you can help me one last time on account of my 20 years of loyalty. Third Elder, apart from the matter of the successor, I, Yu Hongzhang, will agree to any request you have. Faced with the Third Elder's persuasion, the Great Elder, who was the weakest in his heart, suppressed his anger and promised. Great Elder, is there no room for negotiation? The Third Elder asked for the last time, unwilling to give up. No. The Great Elder shook his head and said firmly, if that's the case, then Great Elder, don't blame me, Yu Hongqing, for being ruthless. Seeing that persuasion was unable to make the Great Elder agree to the hope he had bitterly pursued, Yu Hongqing's face couldn't help but darken. He planned to directly use force to resolve the matter. Brother, come out. Yu Hongqing turned his head to the courtyard door and called out. Chapter 735. Pingyang City, within the Yu clan. Yu Honghai, seeing the white-haired old man slowly walking into the courtyard, the First Elder couldn't help but take a step back and call out in a low voice with a gloomy expression. There's more. Indifferently raising his head to look at the First Elder, Yu Honghai said with a light smile. Accompanied by Yu Honghai's light smile, another white-haired old man, wearing a blue and white gown, slowly walked into the courtyard. Yu Hongba, seeing the second white-haired old man enter the courtyard, the First Elder gnashed his teeth and shouted. Then, he turned his head to look at the Third Elder and asked with an angry expression, Old Third, it seems that today's forced abdication was a scheme that you've been planning for a long time. First Elder, if you had agreed to let Qing become the clan's successor from the beginning, then today's scene would absolutely not have happened. Facing the First Elder's angry question, the Third Elder replied with a calm expression. Old Third, don't tell me you think that with Yu Honghai and Yu Hongba, you're confident of victory? Faced with the Third Elder's lecturing tone, the First Elder, who was originally furious, suddenly calmed down and sneered mockingly. Then he turned his head to the loft behind him and shouted, Come out. Following the First Elder's call, 3 white-haired old men, wearing different clothes, walked out from the loft. However, among the 3 old men who walked out of the loft, the most eye-catching one was the old man who held a walking stick. Yu Hongkong, Yu Hongqing, third uncle, seeing the three white-haired old men walk out of the loft. The third elder's expression changed as he shouted, "Little High, little Bow, do you think that your wings have hardened and that you don't care about this old man who's about to be buried in the ground?" The third uncle, whose face was even more aged, slammed the walking stick in his hand hard on the ground and shouted with full energy. But to the third elder's surprise, when faced with the sudden appearance of three experts from the same clan, facing the more senior and stronger third uncle, Yu Hong Hai, who walked in front of him, not only didn't panic in the slightest, but also spoke with an incomparably relaxed and sarcastic tone. "Third uncle, since you already know that you're about to be buried, why don't you obediently stay in your courtyard and wait for death? Why must you interfere in the affairs of us juniors?" In the face of Yu Hong Hai's mockery, the astute third uncle did not get angry. Instead, he began to wonder why Yu Hong Hai, who was weaker than him, had the guts to mock him. Unfortunately, due to the heavy pressure brought by Yu Haoran and his sister, the first elder's temper had become irritable and explosive recently. He thought about how the third elder, who had always been loyal to him, chose to betray him for the sake of the position of the successor of the clan. Then, he thought of the fact that his side had absolute strength. The first elder didn't give third uncle any time to think. With a roar of rage, he charged toward Yu Hong Hai. Yu Hong Kong and Yu Hong Qing subconsciously stepped forward to help when the great elder made the first move. "You're courting death." Seeing the first elder, Yu Hong Kong, and Yu Hong Qing rushing over, Yu Hong Hai sneered without the slightest bit of panic. Then, a sharp sword that emitted traces of pressure appeared in his hand. A low-grade Zone Realm sword. Seeing the sharp sword in Yu Hong Hai's hand, third uncle, who had been staring at him, couldn't help but cry out in shock. Unfortunately, by the time he heard third uncle's cry, the first elder, who had taken the initiative to attack, was already less than 2 meters away from Yu Hong Hai. With the cultivation of a peak 9th-grade martial master, he could basically use 30% of the power of a low-grade Zone Realm magic weapon. Facing the first elder, who was less than 2 meters away, Yu Hong Hai seemed to be casually swinging his sword, but in fact, he was using all his strength. The sword that was swung out shot out a ray of cold light. With a flash of cold light, the first elder's left arm was instantly lifted up. Ah! Seeing that he had lost his arm in an instant, the first elder was stunned for a moment. Then, the intense pain caused him to howl miserably. Ignoring the first elder who was howling in pain due to the loss of his arm, Yu Hong Hai raised his head and glanced at Yu Hong Kong and Yu Hong Qing. Then, with a sinister smile, he charged forward. Although Yu Hong Kong and Yu Hong Qing's strength was not inferior to Yu Hong Hai's, when faced with the threat of a low-grade Zone Realm sword, they could only miserably dodge. They simply didn't dare to face him head-on. However, when Yu Hong Bao and third elder joined the battle, Yu Hong Kong and Yu Hong Qing immediately fell into danger, forcing third uncle to join the battle with his walking stick. "Stop!" The 9th elder, who had rushed over, couldn't help but roar when he saw the chaotic battle in the courtyard. The people in front of him who were desperately fighting were not only his blood relatives, but also the foundation of the Yu clan in Fuyang City. The loss of any one of them was a loss that the Yu clan couldn't bear. Unfortunately, the people who were in a killing frenzy ignored him and continued to fight with all their strength. Damn it! Seeing that no one was paying attention to his roar, the 9th elder cursed inwardly and charged into the battlefield, trying his best to suppress everyone. Although the 9th elder was very strong, stronger than anyone present, he was not a match for the people who were fighting together in a chaotic battle. Moreover, Yu Hong Hai, who was wielding a low-grade Zone Realm sword, made the 9th elder even more afraid to approach. In the corner of the courtyard where the first elder lived, there was a large tree as thick as the mouth of a bowl. Yu Haoran sat cross-legged on a forked branch among the lush leaves at the top of the tree. He couldn't help but shake his head in disappointment as he watched the top experts of the Yu clan fight to the death for the position of successor. Even if all these people in front of him were to die in the end, Yu Haoran wouldn't feel any heartache, nor would he care. However, these people in front of him couldn't die yet, because they were the only ones who knew the real reason why his parents were killed. Therefore, when he saw that the first elder had lost his left arm and was about to be killed by the third elder, he had no choice but to step in and save him. The force formed by his elemental energy directly sent the third elder flying and saved the first elder in time. Who is it? In order to find out the reason for his parents' death, he had used the force formed by his elemental energy to send the third elder flying and didn't really hurt him. Therefore, the third elder stabilized his body and swept his gaze back and forth as he asked, "Stop looking, I'm here." Yu Haoran couldn't help but remind the third elder when he saw that the only place where the enemy was most likely to be hiding was the large tree. Then, he left the tree in a flash and appeared in the middle of the chaotic battle. A powerful aura directly suppressed the chaotic crowd, and they had no choice but to use all their strength to resist the pressure of the aura. But at this moment, Yu Haoran suddenly withdrew his aura, causing the crowd who were using all their strength to resist the aura to feel a sense of weightlessness, as if they had punched a soft flower. Chapter 736. Pingyang City, within the Yu clan. Yu Haoran, ninth elder, who was the first to regain his composure, couldn't help but shout in surprise when he saw the blue-robed youth with an outstanding temperament suddenly appear in the courtyard. Haoran greets ninth elder. Yu Haoran cupped his hands and greeted him politely. After all, he and his sister were only able to survive a year of odd jobs because of ninth elder's secret protection. Otherwise, the two of them would have died under He Jiqiang and Wang Ru's torture. Yu Haoran. Compared to ninth elder's surprise, first elder cried out in horror. Just now, Yu Haoran was able to suppress 6-peak 9th grade martial masters with his aura alone. This was enough to show that after becoming a sect disciple, his cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds. It was even possible that he had broken through the martial ancestor realm that they had been chasing but had been unable to break through. This time, Yu Haoran had suddenly returned to the clan and had been hiding in the big tree in First Elder's courtyard. His intention couldn't be more obvious, which was to seek revenge on First Elder. How could First Elder not be terrified? However, Yu Haoran didn't pay attention to the panicking First Elder for the time being. Instead, he looked at the low-grade zone realm sword in Yu Honghai's hand. Yu Haoran had long looked down on low-grade zone realm magic weapons. He even disliked them for not being sharp enough for digging. The low-grade zone realm sword in Yu Honghai's hand had attracted his attention because Fuyang City was geographically remote and didn't even have spirit stones that could help martial artists cultivate normally. How could a low-grade zone realm magic weapon, which was 100 times more precious than spirit stones, suddenly appear? This situation could only mean two things. Either Yu Honghai had secretly sided with some faction, or he had a good fortuitous encounter. Seeing that Yu Haoran had noticed the low-grade zone realm magic weapon in his hand, Yu Honghai immediately became nervous. However, when he thought of the sword technique he had mastered and the fact that he could kill a martial ancestor realm expert with the sword in his hand, his nervousness was instantly replaced by pride. You must be Yu Haoran, who had an outstanding performance in the sect selection competition last year. Holding the sword in his hand tightly, Yu Honghai lectured with the attitude of an elder. Did the masters of the sect not teach you the most basic etiquette when they guided you in your cultivation? Did they not tell you that you should be respectful when you meet the elders of the family? Even the Emperor Qin, the emperor of the Great Qin Kingdom, whose cultivation had reached the quasi-martial venerable realm, did not dare to use such a tone to lecture him. Yu Haoran did not know whether to laugh or cry at the fact that a mere martial master had dared to scold him to his face. After all, Yu Haoran was someone who had seen countless big scenes. Yu Haoran quickly ignored Yu Honghai's reprimand and reached out to Yu Honghai. Give it to me. The reason why Yu Honghai directly asked for a zone realm low-grade sword was because when Yu Honghai secretly used his elemental energy to activate the sword, a familiar energy fluctuation had surged into his mind. It was as if he had seen the zone realm low-grade sword in his hand somewhere in his previous life. It was just that it had been a long time ago, and he could not recall where it had happened. Therefore, he planned to use his elemental energy and divine sense to further awaken his dormant memories and finally determine the true origin of the sword. Yu Honghai sneered in response to Yu Haoran's request for the sword. "You can have the sword, but you have to come and take it yourself." Frowning slightly, Yu Haoran's originally calm expression instantly darkened. Could it be that the aura he had displayed while suppressing them was not shocking enough? Was it not enough to make them submit to him? Thinking of this, Yu Haoran decided to continue exposing his strength and display even more terrifying means to facilitate his next plan. Therefore, in response to Yu Honghai's provocation, he directly used the 7 changes of the Flood Dragon martial technique and used his elemental energy to transform into a flood dragon to intimidate the Yu clan and the entire Fuyang city. Following the 7 changes of the Flood Dragon martial technique, a majestic green flood dragon about 50 meters long flew out from Yu Haoran's hand. The transformed flood dragon did not immediately attack Yu Honghai. Instead, it flew directly into the sky and let out a deafening roar towards the entire Fuyang city. Roar! The deafening roar instantly spread throughout the entire Fuyang city and attracted the attention of the Wu clan, Chung clan, and the city lord's mansion. Not only did a flood dragon appear in Fuyang city, but it was also a flood dragon about 50 meters long. This could be said to be a disaster for the 4 major forces in Fuyang city. Therefore, the Wu clan, Chung clan, and the city lord's mansion immediately arranged for their experts to escort their young disciples out of Pingyang city. As for the experts who were at the peak of the 9th grade martial master realm, they rushed to the place where the flood dragon appeared to buy time for their young disciples to leave Fuyang city. Looking at the flood dragon hovering above their heads, the Yu clan members were completely dumbfounded. Although Yu Haoran had displayed his talent and potential as a peerless genius during the sect selection and had the potential to become a martial emperor in the future, it had not even been a year since he became a disciple of the sect. In less than a year, Yu Haoran was already able to use such a powerful technique. Whether it was the first elder who was obsessed with power or the arrogant 9th elder, they were all shocked and had an endless yearning to become a disciple of the sect. "Give it to me." Controlling the flood dragon to hover above his head with his divine thought, Yu Haoran once again stretched out his palm towards Yu Honghai and ordered. Looking at the flood dragon hovering above Yu Haoran's head, Yu Honghai, who had his own fortuitous encounter, knew that not only had Yu Haoran successfully broken through to the martial ancestor realm, but his cultivation was also very high in the martial ancestor realm. It was very likely that he had already reached the peak of the martial ancestor realm. Facing such a powerful expert, even if he used his sword technique, he would only be able to injure him at most. He would not be able to severely injure or kill him directly. However, Yu Honghai was very unwilling to obediently hand over the sword to Yu Haoran. This was because the low-grade martial ancestor realm sword in his hand could not only increase his strength, but also concealed a powerful sword technique. The sword technique and the weapon were his means of conquering the Yu clan. It was also the foundation of whether he would be able to break through to the martial ancestor realm and obtain more lifespan. Thinking of this, Yu Honghai, who was unwilling to give up the sword in his hand, decided to give it a try. If he could severely injure Yu Haoran, then the rest would be easy to deal with. If he could only lightly injure Yu Haoran, then he would take the risk of overdrawing his potential and escape from the Yu clan. It would not be too late to seek revenge on Yu Haoran after he broke through to the martial ancestor realm and truly grasped the sword technique of the sword. Thinking of this, Yu Honghai mobilized the essence power of the 9th level of his Dantian and directly channeled it into the sword technique. He then used the sword technique that was compatible with the sword. Big Dipper Slash. Chapter 737. Pingyang City Yu Clan. Hearing the name of Yu Honghai's swordsmanship and the power of the stars, a familiar image surfaced in his mind. At this moment, he finally knew the origin of Yu Honghai's low-grade Zong sword. Immediately after, endless doubts emerged in his heart. Based on his experience with the sword in his previous life, it should have appeared in the distant north region. How could it appear in Yu Honghai's hands at this moment? Thinking of this, his original plan to seize the sword and kill Yu Honghai changed. He wanted to capture Yu Honghai alive and perform a soul-searching technique to find out how Yu Honghai obtained the secret of the Do energy chop swordsmanship and the sword. Mobilizing 90% of his elemental power to stimulate the power of the sword, Yu Honghai's Big Dipper Slash finally formed a dazzling star. Under his control, the star shot directly towards Yu Haoran's heart at a speed faster than the wind. Facing the rapidly approaching star, Yu Haoran did not dodge, nor did he let the flood dragon intercept it. He suddenly stretched out 2 fingers and accurately caught the star that shot toward his heart. It's really it. Through feeling the power of the stars in his hand, Yu Haoran was 100% sure that the swordsmanship that Yu Honghai had just used was the 7-star swordsmanship that he had fought desperately for in his previous life. In the end, he had lost to the master of the Jade Mirage Palace and had lost him. Seeing that the swordsmanship that he had used all his strength to display was easily caught by Yu Haoran's 2 fingers, an unimaginable fear welled up in his heart. At this moment, Yu Honghai no longer had any thoughts of revenge. He only wanted to quickly escape from the Yu clan, escape from Pingyang City, and stay far away from Yu Haoran, who was no longer human in his eyes. Facing the fleeing Yu Honghai, Yu Haoran pointed at him, and the flood dragon, circling above his head, immediately chased after him. Yu Haoran turned his head to look outside the courtyard and said indifferently, "Since you're already here, then come out." After the shock of the flood dragon's appearance, although the fight between Yu Haoran and Yu Honghai was very exciting, it was no longer enough to daze the Yu clan members. Therefore, the members of the Yu clan, who had been paying attention to Yu Haoran, turned their gazes towards the courtyard door at the same time after seeing and hearing his unexpected actions. If I were to ask you to come out, I might not be so gentle. Seeing that the people hiding outside the courtyard did not even move, Yu Haoran could not help but sneer and threaten them. Unfortunately, in the face of Yu Haoran's threats, those who thought they had hidden well still had no intention of coming out. Lin Fan soared Yu Haoran's body, Yu Haoran's eyes, Heeses. He signaled the flood dragon to throw Yu Honghai in front of him, and then signaled it to chase away the people who were hiding outside the courtyard. While Yu Wu Clan, Chung Clan, City Lord Mansion, the 9th Elder gritted his teeth and said as he watched the dozen or so peak 9th grade martial masters flee from their hiding place. Chase them all into the courtyard. Yu Haoran turned his head and ordered the flood dragon. He reached out and took the sword from the unconscious Yu Honghai's hand, which was emitting a cold light. There was no need for him to examine it carefully. The familiarity of the sword from his previous life allowed him to confirm the true origin of the sword in his hand. Although he wanted to use the soul-searching secret technique to search Yu Honghai's memories to find out where he obtained the sword, there were more important things to deal with at the scene. Therefore, he could only trouble the Thaling in his knowledge, to search Yu Honghai's memories for the time being. Yu Haoran waved his hand and put Yu Honghai into the victor. He also told the Thaling about the mysterious origin of the sword and its importance. Then, he turned his gaze to the group of people who had been chased into the courtyard by the flood dragon. Originally, I planned to go to the Wu clan, Shang clan, and City Lord's mansion to have a chat with you people after dealing with the Yu clan. Since you are all here, then let's deal with them together. Yu Haoran said with a light smile as he signaled the flood dragon to seal off their escape route. Seeing that the flood dragon, whose aura had reached the peak of the 7th level 9th grade, was obediently listening to Yu Haoran's orders, the dozen peak 9th grade martial masters from the Wu clan, Chung clan, and the City Lord mansion could only stand there obediently. Everyone, Yu Haoran, have returned to Pingyang City this time for only one purpose, and that is to know the reason why my parents were killed and who the culprit was. His gaze swept across everyone present and finally stopped on the First Elder, who had used the Jinshuang medicine to barely stop the bleeding. First Elder, you were the one who personally experienced the battle back then. Therefore, You will be the one to tell us the details of the battle back then. Yu Haoran said in a faint voice. Although he had used the soul-searching secret technique to search the First Elder's memories in his previous life, he was limited by the imprisonment technique in his mind. He didn't really know much about it. He only knew that the opponents in the secret battle were a group of mysterious and powerful black-clothed men. Therefore, this time, he wanted the Thaling to break the restriction in the First Elder's memories and also wanted to find clues about the process of the secret battle through the detailed description of the scene. He hoped that through a two-pronged approach, he could finally find the culprit behind his parents' deaths and the reason for their deaths. Yu Haoran, although I was also a participant in the secret battle that year, by the time I truly participated, the secret battle was already nearing its end. In response to Yu Haoran's orders, the First Elder, who had endured the pain of losing his arm, replied with a respectful expression. I don't know how your parents became enemies with the other party, nor do I know the true origins of the other party. Seeing Yu Haoran frown slightly, the First Elder was afraid that he would be angry, so he quickly pulled the Ninth Elder in as well. Yu Haoran, if you don't believe me, the Ninth Elder who participated in the secret battle with me back then can testify. Haoran, the First Elder is right. Although the Ninth Elder was very unhappy with the First Elder's sudden action of involving him, he didn't blame the First Elder for it. Instead, he guaranteed the First Elder. Back then, when I received your father's distress signal, I immediately brought the First Elder, the Third Elder, the Blue Dragon, the White Tiger, the Vermilion Bird, and the Black Tortoise Hall Masters to receive help. But when we arrived at the battlefield, we found that not only were your parents seriously injured and on the verge of death, but all the experts belonging to their faction had also been killed. If the First Elder hadn't made the prompt decision to bring us back immediately, I'm afraid that we would have died there. Because the strength of that group of people was too strong, so strong that you couldn't resist at all. Chapter 738. Pingyang City, within the Yu clan. After hearing the Ninth Elder's assurance, Yu Haoran nodded and did not express any opinion. Subsequently, he cast his gaze towards the Third Elder and said indifferently, You say it. The matter is exactly the same as what the First Elder said. In response to Yu Haoran's command, the Third Elder immediately replied, Third Elder, did I ask you to repeat the First Elder's words? With a solemn expression, Yu Haoran sternly reprimanded. Describe in detail what you saw with your own eyes. Yes, yes. After hearing Yu Haoran's reprimand, the Third Elder immediately panicked and repeatedly said yes. Then he described in detail his experience at that time. Ninth Elder, I'll have to trouble you to bring the 4 Hall Masters here. After hearing the Third Elder's narration, Yu Haoran closed his eyes and tidied himself up. After opening his eyes, he instructed the Ninth Elder. Okay, I'll go now. In response to Yu Haoran's command, the Ninth Elder subconsciously nodded and complied. Then, he executed a movement technique and left the courtyard. After the Ninth Elder left the courtyard, Yu Haoran's gaze turned towards the Chung clan's crowd. He was dressed in brocade clothes and had an elegant temperament. He was a middle-aged man, around 40 years old. Chung Kitchen, the secret battle that year had nothing to do with your Chung clan. Why did you suddenly appear on the battlefield? In response to Yu Haoran's questioning, the Chung clan's patriarch, Chung Kitchen, subconsciously glanced at Yu Hongzhang. His eyes flashed with a trace of hesitation. Yu Haoran ordered as he condensed a trace of origin energy on his middle finger and directly shot it through Chung Kitchen's shoulder. Speak. Reaching out to cover his shoulder that was shot through by the origin energy, Chung Kitchen looked at Yu Haoran with a frightened expression. In the beginning, he was afraid of Yu Haoran only because he could command the dragon above his head. He did not think that Yu Haoran's strength was that strong. However, with just a strand of condensed origin energy, he was able to directly penetrate his shoulder. This meant that the other party's cultivation had at least broken through the martial arts grandmaster realm. It had been less than 9 months since the sex selection competition last year. Yu Haoran had gone from the martial disciple realm to the martial warrior and martial master realm. directly breaking through to the martial ancestor realm. The strength of the sect made him yearn for it, but Yu Haoran's talent made him feel fear. Therefore, Chung Kitchen, who originally wanted to hide some secrets for the Great Elder, quickly explained. Young hero Yu, just before your parents fought with that group of mysterious people, I secretly received a reminder from your Yu clan's Great Elder, Yu Hongzhang. It said that Yu Hongji and his wife are being besieged by strong enemies. If we can help the strong enemies kill Yu Hongji and his wife, then our Chung clan will be able to break free from Yu Hongji suppression and make a complete comeback. At this point, Chung Kitchen saw Yu Haoran frown slightly. He was afraid that Yu Haoran would misunderstand that his parents' death was related to the Chung clan, so he hurriedly continued to explain. However, when I led the Chung clan's experts to the battlefield, we discovered that the enemies besieging your parents had not only made their move in advance, but their strength was also too strong. There was only one person on the other side. Within 3 moves, he defeated and heavily injured your parents. In one move, he killed all of your parents' subordinates. Chung Kitchen, give me a detailed explanation of the martial skills that the other party used. Hearing that Chung Kitchen had personally witnessed the other party's attack, Yu Haoran hurriedly asked. He did not use any martial skills. He only used the foundation fist techniques, straight punch, swing punch, and hook punch. Facing Yu Haoran's questioning, Chung Kitchen carefully recalled the scene he had seen and replied with a shocked expression. Using only the foundation fist techniques, straight punch, swing punch, and hook punch, he was able to defeat and heavily injure his parents, who had reached the martial ancestor realm after joining forces. This situation showed that the other party's strength had either reached a certain level or his background was not ordinary. Because the higher one's cultivation, the stronger one's strength, the more one would realize the importance of one's foundation. Therefore, the top forces in the Tianxian continent placed great importance on the foundation training of their disciples in the early stages of cultivation. However, with just this bit of information, it was not enough to deduce the identity of the murderer. Therefore, Yu Haoran's gaze turned to the Wu clan's patriarch, Wu Jiping. Facing Yu Haoran's gaze, Wu Jiping subconsciously touched his shoulder. Patriarch Wu, you can rest assured. Facing Wu Jiping's startled actions, Yu Haoran said in a gentle tone, For Zhengjuan's sake, I will not harm you or the Wu clan's people. Although Wu Zhengjuan's relationship with the Wu clan was shallow, the Wu clan was where he had grown up. He had not been oppressed and humiliated like himself, so he still had a certain sense of belonging to the Wu clan in his heart. Therefore, he did not want to hurt the brotherly relationship between him and Wu Zhengjun because of his extreme methods. Of course, if the Wu clan was directly related to the murder of his parents, then the result would be a different story. Young hero Yu, how is Zhengjun now? Hearing that Yu Haoran would not harm the Wu clan's people for Wu Zhengjuan's sake, Wu Zhengpeng could not help but feel his face turn red. After all, during the clan selection, Wu Zhengjun had almost died at the hands of his own son, Wu Juanda. If it weren't for Wu Zhengjuan's special physique breaking out at the critical moment, his strength skyrocketing to turn defeat into victory, and he became Yu Haoran's fellow disciple, he was afraid that the situation he was facing now would be exactly the same as Chung Kitchen. Therefore, Wu Zhengpeng, who felt resentment and guilt in his heart, could not help but want to know Wu Zhengjuan's current situation. Junior brother Zhengjun is doing very well now. He had just broken through to the martial ancestor realm some time ago, and is now in Xianyang City of the Emperor Qin's kingdom. Thinking of how Wu Zhengjun had unreservedly trusted him and followed him, Yu Haoran's heart softened and his attitude towards Wu Jiping became much gentler. What? Zhengjun has already broken through to the martial ancestor realm. Hearing Yu Haoran mention Wu Zhengjuan's realm, Wu Jiping asked in disbelief. When I parted ways with junior brother Zhengjun, he was already at the early 3rd grade of the martial ancestor realm. Nodding, Yu Haoran replied. Then, he began to ask Wu Jiping about the details of the secret battle that happened that year. Clan leader Wu, please carefully recall the process of my parents' murder. I hope you can find clues left behind by the murderer. It was because of Yu Haoran's gentle attitude and Wu Zhengjuan's astonishing cultivation talent that Wu Jiping decided to help Yu Haoran. Young hero Yu. Actually, my experience is similar to clan leader Cheng's. I also secretly received a notice from the great elder of the Yu clan and led the Wu clan's experts to the battlefield. Then I saw the process of your parents being severely injured by the enemy. Speaking of this, Wu Jiping glanced at the city lord of Pingyang City and then walked to Yu Haoran's side and said in a low voice. Chapter 739. Sigh. The situation is the same as yesterday. The 5th and 6th chapters will have to be delayed until nighttime again. Pingyang City, Yu clan. Qinziang was already very nervous because Yu Haoran had suddenly investigated the reason for the murder of Yu Hongji and his wife. When he saw Wu Jiping whispering to Yu Haoran while looking at him, Qinziang felt even more nervous. In particular, the way Yu Haoran looked at him had changed from indifference to sharpness. Feeling guilty, Qinziang immediately thought of escaping. He quietly took out a yellowish talisman and secretly activated it with his elemental energy. When the power of the talisman enveloped him, Qinziang couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Not good, because the information provided by Wu Jiping was too important. Yu Haoran didn't notice Qinziang's abnormality. When he realized that the energy waves emitted from Qinziang's body were an instantaneous escape talisman, he knew that things were not good. Goodbye, Yu Haoran. Qinziang, who had already felt the effect of the escape talisman, bid farewell to Yu Haoran proudly. Without time to blame himself or regret, Yu Haoran immediately mobilized all the divine thoughts in his sea of consciousness. The divine thoughts turned into countless sharp arrows and instantly shot at the energy shield formed by the escape talisman. Although it didn't stop Qinziang from leaving in the end, Yu Haoran discovered that the escape talisman used by the other party was only a low-level talisman. The distance of teleportation couldn't be more than 100 miles. Black Bear, capture him alive. Yu Haoran turned to the top of a big tree in the courtyard and ordered, "Yes, master." Along with the resounding reply, no one noticed that Black Bear had already left. "Thank you so much, Clan Leader Wu. The information you provided just now was too important." Within 100 miles, Qinziang couldn't possibly escape the pursuit of a level 4 Saint Stage Black Bear. Therefore, after Black Bear chased after him, Yu Haoran turned to thank Wu Jiping. "Young hero Yu Haoran, you're too polite. This is what I should do." Wu Jiping replied politely in response to Yu Haoran's gratitude. After thinking for a while, he finally said with a determined expression, "Young hero Yu, when you return to the sect and see Zhengjun, I'll have to trouble you to tell him that I, Wu Jipeng, didn't teach my son well and almost made a big mistake. Therefore, I'll resign from the position of clan head as an apology. Also, I'll nominate him as the new clan head of the Wu clan. I can really let it go." Hearing that Wu Zhengjun was not only willing to let go of the grudge of his son's murder, he was even willing to give up his position as patriarch in exchange for Wu Zhengjuan's forgiveness, Yu Haoran felt deep admiration for him. Nodding heavily, Wu Jiping said with a firm attitude, "The interests of the clan are greater than anything else. For the sake of the Wu clan's longevity, not to mention giving up the revenge of my son's death, even if I, Wu Jipeng, had to sacrifice myself, I would absolutely not frown. Moreover, what happened back then wasn't the Zhengjuan's fault. Clan head Wu, I thank you on behalf of Zhengjun." After hearing Wu Zhengjuan's resolute attitude, Yu Haoran felt happy for him and made a decision for him. "However, you should still continue to be the clan head. This is because Zhengjuan's future doesn't belong to Pingyang City, nor does it belong to the great Emperor Qin's kingdom. His future battlefield will be in the central region. His future achievements will be Wu Zun and Emperor Wu." Although Yu Haoran's evaluation of Wu Zhengjun just now sounded very arrogant, no one present felt repulsed by it. Or rather, they felt that he was bragging. It seemed as if Wu Zhengjun really did have the hope of becoming a Wu Zun and Emperor Wu. Just as Yu Haoran was looking forward to Wu Zhongjuan's future, the ninth elder, who had gone to summon the four hall masters, and He Xiong, who had captured Qin Ziong, returned to the courtyard at the same time. In order to capture Qin Ziong, He Xiong had directly used the power of a fourth-order saint. As a result, when he landed in the courtyard, he did not manage to withdraw his fourth-order saint aura in time. As a result, everyone in the courtyard was forced to their knees by He Xiong's aura. This included Wu Zhipeng, who had just provided important information. He Xiong, seeing the kneeling Wu Zhipeng, Yu Haoran hurriedly reminded He Xiong. When He Xiong withdrew his level 4 saint aura and obediently crawled to the corner of the wall, everyone stood up one by one with terrified expressions. Yu Haoran, I'll tell you everything you want to know. I just beg you not to kill me. Seeing Yu Haoran's gaze, Qin Ziong, who had long been scared out of his wits by He Xiong, immediately knelt down and kowtowed again, begging for mercy. No need. Walking in front of Qin Ziong, Yu Haoran coldly shook his head and refused. Then he pressed his hand on Qin Ziong's head and directly used the soul-searching secret technique to search his memories. Although the demonic path's soul-searching secret technique could clearly see the other party's memories, the process of searching was extremely painful. It could be described as excruciating. Half an hour. After a full half an hour, Yu Haoran finally finished searching Qin Ziong's memories and found information about those mysterious people. Qin Ziong, who was enduring the pain of the soul-searching secret technique, howled in pain for a full half an hour. When Yu Haoran withdrew his hand from Qin Ziong's head, not only did the soul-searching secret technique cause damage to the soul, but it also caused Qin Ziong to faint and become an idiot from then on. Yu Haoran didn't care about this at all. He closed his eyes and began to organize the information he had just searched. After organizing Qin Ziong's memories, Yu Haoran discovered that, although he didn't know who these mysterious people were, he knew that they had deep ties to Emperor Qin's imperial clan court. This was because these mysterious people had used the clan lord's medallion of the imperial clan court to contact him and order him to eliminate all traces of their presence in Pingyang City. Yu Haoran couldn't help but gnash his teeth as he looked in the direction of Xianyang City. The imperial clan court. Because of the conflict at the engagement ceremony, he and the imperial clan court were already in a state of irreconcilable enmity. And now, the imperial clan court had been implicated in the murder of his parents. Thus, he could not let the imperial clan court go, even if it meant falling out with Emperor Qin. Taking a deep breath and suppressing his hatred for the imperial clan court, Yu Haoran turned his gaze to the four hall masters that ninth elder had brought with him. Other than Blue Dragon, Hall Master Yu Hongyang, stay. All of you leave. Since he had already found out from Qin Ziong's memories that the mysterious group of people was directly related to the imperial clan court, there was no point in interrogating the four hall masters who had followed the three elders to rescue the imperial clan court. Thus, Yu Haoran waved his hand and calmly ordered, "Yes." The three hall masters, who had already received ninth elder's instructions, respectfully cupped their fists and left the courtyard. Chapter 740. Pingyang City, Yu Clan. Young hero Yu, my Chung clan is willing to give up half of Pingyang City's territory to make up for the crime of attacking your parents. Seeing that Yu Haoran's gaze finally stopped on him, Chung Kitchen, who had long been scared out his wits, immediately knelt down and begged for mercy. 2/3 of the territory. Yu Haoran ordered indifferently. Okay, as long as he could keep his life and preserve the Chung clan's legacy, he was willing to leave Fuyang City. Therefore, in the face of Yu Haoran's order, Chung Kitchen did not hesitate and immediately nodded in agreement. Let's go. Yu Haoran waved his hand to disperse the clouds and the dragon circling above his head. Ninth Elder, Clan Head Wu. The two clans will each take 1/3 of the territory that the Chung clan gave up. After waiting for the Chung clan to leave, Yu Haoran ordered the Ninth Elder and Wu Jipeng. Then, without giving the two people a chance to thank him, Yu Haoran knocked out Yu Hongyang and disappeared from the courtyard with the first elder who was knocked out by the Black Bear's aura. However, before disappearing, he left behind a sentence. Ninth Elder, let Lin Yun wait for me at Jingya Pavilion. Seeing Yu Haoran leave the courtyard as fast as lightning, the Ninth Elder raised his hand but did not say anything in the end. Unlike the Ninth Elder, after Yu Haoran left the courtyard, Wu Jiping's gaze immediately turned to the few peak ninth-grade martial masters standing in the courtyard. Ninth Elder, let's do it, Wu Jiping suggested as he pulled out his sword. Facing Wu Jiping's suggestion, the Ninth Elder was somewhat hesitant. Although Qin Xiang was unconscious and the other party had lost their strongest expert, the other party was the Emperor Qin's appointed Pingyang City Lord. If he killed the other party's subordinate, wouldn't he offend the Emperor Qin's kingdom? With the strength of the Emperor Qin's kingdom, they could casually send out a group of soldiers to destroy the Yu and Cheng clans. Wu Jiping couldn't help but shake his head in disappointment when he saw the Ninth Elder hesitating. After that, he didn't pay any more attention to him. Instead, he directly summoned the experts of the Wu family and began to kill the experts of the City Lord's mansion. Just as Wu Jiping and his men besieged the City Lord mansion's experts, just as the Ninth Elder was hesitating whether or not to make a move, Yu Haoran's extremely disappointed sigh suddenly came from the courtyard. After hearing Yu Haoran's sigh, Wu Jiping's mood immediately soared. When he heard Yu Haoran's sigh, the Ninth Elder's expression couldn't help but change. He then called for a few peak martial masters from the Yu clan to join in the siege of the City Lord's mansion. Third Uncle, who was holding a walking stick, couldn't help but shake his head in disappointment at Ninth Elder. Then, he waved his walking stick and joined the chaotic battle. After leaving the Great Elder's courtyard, Yu Haoran immediately flew into the air and headed straight for a forest on the east side of Pingyang City. This forest was the graveyard of the Yu clan's ancestors. Sigh. Yu Haoran couldn't help but sigh sorrowfully when he landed in front of a grave that hadn't been cleaned for a long time and was overgrown with weeds. After casually tossing the unconscious Great Elder and Yu Hongyang in front of the grave, Yu Haoran began to bend down and clean up the weeds in front of the grave. When the weeds in front of the grave were cleaned up and a simple tombstone was revealed, Yu Haoran felt a sense of self-blame and felt his eyes moisten. He took a deep breath and swept his gaze across a radius of 10,000 meters. After confirming that there was no one around, he directly carried Yu Hongzhang and Yu Hongyang into the victor. Yu Haoran, a great opportunity has arrived, Faling said excitedly when he saw Yu Haoran carrying Yu Hongzhang and Yu Hongyang into the first floor of the victor. Could it be news of the Star Tomb? Yu Haoran asked in surprise when he saw Yu Honghai lying at the foot of Faling. That's right. Faling nodded and excitedly explained. According to Yu Honghai's memories, a crack suddenly appeared in a valley 900 kilometers away from Fuyang City 3 months ago. And this 7-star crescent slashing sword was discovered when he was 100 meters deep into the crack. Faling took out the low-grade Grandmaster Realm sword that Yu Haoran had given to the victor not long ago and tossed it to Yu Haoran. After receiving the 7-star crescent sword from Faling, Yu Haoran immediately asked, Faling, has the Star Tomb opened yet? According to my judgment and what Yu Honghai saw, I predict that the Star Tomb will open soon. It won't take more than 3 days. Faling shook his head and gave an approximate time when the Star Tomb would open. That's great. The Star Tomb would open completely in 3 days at most. After hearing Faling's judgment, Yu Haoran couldn't help but exclaim in excitement. Back then, he had used the method of fusing with his doppelganger to escape from the Imperial Palace and leave Xianyang City mainly because he couldn't deal with the palace master of the Imperial clan court, Qin Bojun, whose cultivation and strength had reached the quasi-martial saint realm. Even if he risked rupturing his meridians, collapsing his dantian, and damaging his foundation, he still wouldn't be a match for Qin Bojun, who had complete control over the power of laws, even if he used the possession technique with Faling's spirit. Yu Haoran had chosen to return to Pingyang City not only to investigate the secret of his parents' death, but also to use the remote and quiet environment to increase his cultivation and strength with the help of the victor's ability to accelerate time. He wanted to use this opportunity to cultivate a secret technique that Thowling had provided, a secret technique that overdrew half of his potential and lifespan in exchange for the power to kill a quasi-martial saint. Although he could use his pill-refining ability to make up for the overdrawn potential and lifespan, the damage to his foundation could not be healed with pills. He could only rely on time to slowly repair it. In order to fulfill his promise to Qin Lingfei and ride the rainbow auspicious cloud to meet her within a short period of time, Yu Haoran had decided to take a risk. Now that the Star Tomb was about to open, he didn't need to use the secret technique that overdrew his potential and lifespan. This was because there was a treasure in the Star Tomb, a treasure that he could use as long as his cultivation broke through to the Martial King realm. That treasure was enough to deal with Qin Bojun, who was a quasi-martial saint. However, the joy in his heart didn't last for long before it was replaced by doubt. Thowling, that's not right. Yu Haoran frowned as he spoke. I've entered the Star Tomb in my previous life, but that was 50 years later. Furthermore, the location of the Star Tomb isn't here. It's far away in the northern region. Thowling explained with a smile when he heard Yu Haoran voice his doubts. The Star Tomb was built by the Stellar Source Emperor in the middle of the near-ancient era. When his lifespan was about to reach its limit, he built it according to the distribution of the stars. The tomb will change according to the movement of the stars. Yu Haoran, if it weren't for the destruction of the near-ancient era, some of the stars would have been destroyed. Given the Stellar Source Emperor's strength, the Star Tomb wouldn't have opened even after 1,000,000 years. Chapter 741. Inside the Victor. After hearing Thowling's explanation, the doubts in Yu Haoran's heart dissipated and were immediately replaced by endless joy. After all, the Star Tomb was going to appear in the remote Pingyang city this time. It seemed that other than himself, the strongest person in the entire Pingyang city was only at the peak of a 9th-grade martial master. Against such an opponent, he could kill him with a single glance. Therefore, the Star Tomb that was about to open would be his to explore alone. All of the treasures in the Star Tomb were at his disposal. How could he not be excited by such a feeling? Fortunately, his strong mental state cultivation allowed him to quickly calm his excitement. He then casually threw the Great Elder in front of Thowling and explained with a calm expression. Thowling, someone has set up a very special confinement formation in the Great Elder's soul, causing me to be unable to search his memories in my previous life. Therefore, I'll have to trouble you to undo the confinement formation in his soul and see if he knows the true origins of that group of mysterious people. All right. Nodding, the pagoda's spirit directed its divine sense into the Great Elder's sea of consciousness. Soon, it discovered the confinement array that had been set up on his soul. The blood fiend soul devouring formation. When he saw that the confinement formation in the Great Elder's soul was actually a long-lost forbidden formation, Thowling could not help but cry out in shock. Thowling, what kind of formation is the blood fiend's soul devouring formation? After hearing Thowling shout out the origin of the formation, Yu Haoran carefully thought about it and realized that he had never heard of such a formation before, so he hurriedly asked, Yu Haoran, it seems that the background of your parents' murderer is not to be underestimated. Thowling did not immediately reply to Yu Haoran's question and instead spoke with a grave expression. Thowling, don't forget our agreement. Seeing that Thowling wanted to use the important matter as an excuse to trick him, Yu Haoran hurriedly warned him. Besides, you still haven't explained to me the secret that householder Qing Lian Su Hongwan is not a human being. Yu Haoran, the blood fiend soul-devouring array, was created by a peak demonic Tao Supreme Realm expert who was proficient in array formations based on an incomplete devouring grand art and a top demonic Tao soul-searching secret art. It is a forbidden array formation that prevents others from stealing memories. Faced with Yu Haoran's reminder and warning, Thowling thought for a while and finally decided to confess. After all, Yu Haoran, who had undergone a complete transformation using the rank 4, rank 7 Nirvana pill, was already completely different from before. He had the qualifications to know some secrets that involved the destiny of the world in advance. The complete blood fiend, soul-devouring formation is extremely sinister. This is because the array contains a secret devouring technique. When the blood fiend soul-devouring array is activated, not only will it directly devour the divine soul of the person who set up the array to prevent the secret from leaking out, it will also devour the divine soul of the person who activated the array. After explaining to this point, Thaling could not help but sigh with relief. Fortunately, the blood fiend soul-devouring array on the Great Elder's soul is incomplete. Otherwise, you would have died in the other party's conspiracy in your previous life. Thaling, can you undo the blood fiend soul-devouring array on the Great Elder's soul? Since it had not happened in his previous life, it would not happen in this life either. Therefore, Yuhauran did not feel as relieved as Thaling. He now wanted to know if Thaling could undo the blood fiend soul-devouring array. If it is the complete blood fiend soul-devouring array, I'm afraid it will take about 10 days. But it is incomplete. At this point, the tower spirit arrogantly said, "Give me 30 minutes." While Thaling was cracking the incomplete blood fiend soul-devouring array, Yuhauran directly reached out and pressed his hand on Yu Hongyang's head, beginning to search his memory for information about the secret battle. However, the results of his search were exactly the same as what 3rd Elder and 9th Elder had said. He did not find any clues about the secret battle. However, when he searched Yu Hongyang's memory, he found something very interesting. That was, Yu Hongyang also knew about the woman hidden in the village of Purple Mountain by the Great Elder, as well as the secret of the twins. It turned out that when his father had met with an accident, the Great Elder had taken over the family's power. Yu Hongyang had thought that the position of clan leader would belong to him. Moreover, he had already made preparations to become the clan leader. However, the Great Elder had used the reason that he was not powerful enough and did not have enough prestige to make him endure for a few years. This made Yu Hongyang unhappy, and he began to suspect that the Great Elder had other ideal candidates for the position of clan leader. Therefore, Yu Hongyang used the power of the Blue Dragon clan to secretly investigate and monitor the Great Elder, and finally discovered the secret hidden in the village of Purple Mountain. After finding out that the twins in the village of Purple Mountain were his half-brothers, Yu Hongyang had always thought that the Great Elder wanted to make one of the twins the clan leader. As such, in his hatred, the Great Elder had sent people to kill everyone in the village of Purple Mountain and then burn down the village of Purple Mountain. If it wasn't for the fact that the Great Elder had always been afraid of that woman's identity and refused to go to the village of Purple Mountain, he would not have known that the secret he had always feared had been secretly dealt with by Yu Hongyang. Otherwise, his threat and counterattack in the meeting hall would not have had any effect. Yuhauran withdrew his hand from Yu Hongyang's head and thought about the twins who had died at his hands, and he could not help but sigh. Following this, he looked at the 7-star, moon-slashing sword in his hand. Yuhauran deeply breathed in and closed his eyes. Just as he was about to use the 7-star moon-slashing sword to comprehend the 7-star moon-slashing sword technique, he suddenly felt as if he had missed something. However, no matter how much he thought about it, he could not remember what he had missed, and this made him feel quite frustrated. In this state of frustration, it was not suitable for him to continue comprehending the 7-star moon-slashing sword technique. Therefore, he could only open his eyes again and temporarily put the 7-star moon-slashing sword into the storage ring, intending to continue comprehending the sword technique in the sword in the future. However, when his consciousness withdrew from the space of the storage ring, he accidentally saw the half of the word heart condensed by Qin Ling Fei with blood and the rules of heaven. He suddenly knew what he had missed. The woman hidden by the Great Elder in the village of Purple Mountain was the fiancée of Qin Tianzi, the first prince of the Emperor Qin's kingdom. Unlike the arrogant Qin Tianyi, Qin Tianzi, who also had the potential to become the emperor, was low-key and modest. He had always been stationed at the border, causing many people in Xianyang City to forget his existence. After his recent experience in Xianyang City, Yu Haoran knew that appearance and character were important, but talent and potential were also key factors to become the fiancée of the imperial prince. In other words, the woman who could become Qin Tianzi's fiancée must have the potential of a monster. Chapter 742. Sorry, the name of the first few chapters is wrong. It's Pingyang City, not Fuyang City. I've already contacted the editor to correct it. 6 chapters a day is indeed tiring. Inside the victor, Yu Haoran, who also had the potential to be a genius, knew all too well how effective it was in assisting one's cultivation speed. The martial disciple, martial warrior, and martial master realms could be easily broken through in half a year. The martial grandmaster, martial king, and martial emperor realms could also be broken through in 10 to 3 years. Based on the woman's age, she was at least a martial emperor. She might even be a martial sage. Even if she was a martial grandmaster, Yu Hongyang's subordinates would not be able to deal with her, let alone a martial emperor. Furthermore, Qin Tianzi's fiancée had a powerful background. Even if she was severely injured and could not use her origin energy and soul power, she would still have ways to protect herself. It was impossible for the Great Elder, who was already an old man and was only a martial master, to dominate her. It was even more impossible for her to give birth to a pair of twins. Therefore, the Great Elder's unexpected rescue of that woman and the fact that she was dominated and had given birth to a child was most likely a conspiracy. A conspiracy that could possibly involve the Emperor Qin scandal. At the same time, Yu Haoran had a very strong feeling that the woman's conspiracy might have something to do with his parents' death. Therefore, Yu Haoran decided to immediately rush to the Purple Mountain Manor after searching the Great Elder's memories to see if he could find any clues left behind by that woman. Just as Yu Haoran made up his mind to break the blood and soul devouring formation, Thaling, who had his eyes closed, opened his eyes and signaled that he could use the soul-searching secret technique to search the Great Elder's memories. He pressed his hand on the Great Elder's head and used the soul-searching secret technique to search through his entire life's memories. After more than 40 minutes, Yu Haoran finally withdrew his left hand from the Great Elder's head and asked Thaling with a puzzled expression, "Thaling, are you sure the blood and soul-devouring formation was successfully broken?" "Of course," Thaling replied arrogantly. "Could it be that you still don't believe in my strength? Then why is a part of the Great Elder's memory missing?" Yu Haoran questioned. It took more than 40 minutes, not because the Great Elder's memory was complicated, but because he had gone through it 3 times. This was because the Great Elder did not have any memories of the secret battle back then, nor did he have any impression of the manor of Purple Mountain. This was clearly very abnormal. After hearing Yu Haoran's question, Thaling couldn't help but frown. Then, he placed his hand on the Great Elder's head and began to search his memories. How is this possible? Thaling also discovered a part of the Grand Elder's missing memories through the secret searching technique. Moreover, the missing part of the memory was lost when the Blood Fiend soul-devouring formation was removed. Thaling found it hard to believe and accept. Indicating that Yu Haoran should not disturb him for now, Thaling closed his eyes and began to carefully recall every step he had taken to break the Blood Fiend's soul-devouring formation. In the end, he discovered something wrong. What an exquisite technique! What a cunning method! Thaling praised through clenched teeth as he carefully calculated the reasons for his miscalculation. Seeing that Thaling had found the reason for the Great Elder's missing memories, Yu Haoran hurriedly asked, "What's going on, Thaling?" "Yu Haoran, first of all, let me apologize to you." In response to Yu Haoran's questioning, Thaling withdrew his left hand from the Great Elder's head and apologized to Yu Haoran with an ashamed expression. "Because of my carelessness, you lost your greatest hope of investigating your parents' death." "Thaling, it's fine. In any case, I can continue to investigate the murderer through the Imperial Clan Court," Yu Haoran consoled, shaking his head. Yu Haoran continued to ask, "Thaling, what's going on?" "In truth, the reason for my mistake, besides my own carelessness, was also because my opponent's methods were too cunning. His understanding of human nature could be described as monstrous. Because my opponent connected the missing part of the Great Elder's memory with the blood fiend soul devouring formation, the moment the formation was broken, that part of the memory was also erased. At this point, Thowling looked at Howren as if he wanted to say something, but hesitated. Thowling, have you forgotten our agreement? Howren hurriedly reminded him when he saw that Thowling was about to conceal his secret again. Howren, in the end, I suspect that the murderer who set up the blood fiend soul-devouring formation is very likely a peak martial grandmaster level talisman master. A peak martial grandmaster level talisman master. While Howren was deeply shocked by Thowling's speculation, he began to recall the talisman masters he had come into contact with in his previous life to see if he could find a suspect murderer. Compared to alchemists, artifact masters, and formation masters, talisman masters were even rarer, and talisman masters of higher realms were even rarer. In his 100 years of adventuring in his previous life, he had come into contact with less than 100 talisman masters, less than 10 talisman masters of the martial grandmaster level, and there seemed to be no talisman master of the Yuzongshire level. Thus, in the end, he came up empty-handed. However, knowing that there was a peak martial grandmaster level talisman master in that group of mysterious people could be considered an additional clue to pursue, so it could not be said that he came up empty-handed. Moreover, in the Great Elder's missing memory, there was information about the woman and the twins in the Purple Mountain Manor, which fully proved that his previous speculation was correct. Thus, the Great Elder's regret of not being able to find out who the murderer was due to his missing memory of his parents' murder immediately subsided. Afterward, he got up and carried the Great Elder and Hongyang away from the victor, appearing in front of his parents' grave. Looking at Howren leaving the victor, Thowling's face revealed a conflicted expression, because when he learned that the murderer was a peak martial grandmaster level talisman master, Thowling vaguely guessed the murderer's origin. However, the power behind the murderer was too strong, so strong that even if Howren reached the peak of the 9th grade martial revered realm, or even a peerless master at the level of Emperor Wu, it would be difficult for him to shake that power. Unless he could become Emperor Wu, it was precisely because the power behind the murderer was too strong that he did not know whether to tell Howren the truth or not. However, when he saw Howren kneeling in front of the grave with tears of sorrow in his eyes, Thowling finally decided to hide this secret for the time being. When he had the strength to contend against them, he would tell him about that power. As for Qin Bojun, the head of the Imperial clan court, Thowling believed that he was not very clear about his true origins either. Father, mother, your child is unfilial. It took me so long to come see you. Howren kneeled in front of the grave and wept sorrowfully as he blamed himself. Father, mother, your child is useless. Not only did I lose the foundation that you worked so hard to build, but I also implicated my elder sister to suffer with me. Chapter 743. Outside Pingyang City, in the forest. Fortunately, I received the protection of the heavens and obtained the heaven-defying opportunity to be reborn in 100 years. I also met Thowling, who treated me like an elder. Now, not only did I help my sister recover her crippled cultivation and send her to the Snow Palace, one of the 7 top forces in the Tianxian continent, I also personally brought the 2 murderers who framed you. At this point, Howren stood up and lifted Hongyang. Facing his parents' tombstone, he used his hand as a knife and chopped off his head. Father, mother, your son swears on Hongyang's blood that he will take good care of elder sister. Not only will he help her become an expert whose name shakes the entire profound sky continent, he will also help her find a life partner so that she can live a carefree life. Then, he threw away Hongyang's body and lifted the great elder's body. Similarly, he raised his hand and swore, Father, mother, I swear on Hongyang's blood that I will definitely find the murderer who killed you. Then, I will bring the murderer's head to comfort your souls in heaven. Throwing away Hongyang's body, Yu Haoran knelt in front of the tombstone again and kowtowed 3 times. Then, he rose into the air and called out to Black Bear. They went straight to the Purple Mountain Manor where the mysterious woman lived. Looking at the Purple Mountain Manor that had been completely turned into a pile of ashes, and even the bauhinia flowers had been uprooted, Yu Haoran was dumbfounded. He could not help but sigh at how Yu Honyang, whose mentality had been distorted by power, had such a deep hatred for that woman. However, although Yu Honyang was happy at that time, he had lost all hope of finding out the mysterious woman's background. Yu Haoran, who was unwilling to give up, mobilized all the divine sense in his sea of consciousness and began to search inch by inch, hoping to find some clues from the ashes. But the result was still fruitless. Although he could not find any clues about the woman's background from the Purple Mountain Manor, he remembered that the woman was Qin Tianzi's fiancée. Emperor Qin and Qin Lingfei must have known about her. Therefore, Yu Haoran did not feel too disappointed. Instead, he flew back to Pingyang City with Black Bear and returned to his own courtyard, Jingyao Pavilion. Subordinate Lin Yun greets the young patriarch. Lin Yun, who had been waiting for a long time in quiet Grace Pavilion's courtyard, quickly stepped forward and bowed. No need for formalities. Yu Haoran waved his hand. Soon after, he raised his head and glanced at Jingyao Pavilion, only to find that there was actually no pavilion in Jingyao Pavilion that was necessary for a courtyard. Helpless, he could only invite Lin Yun into the living room. Not bad. Leaning against the back of a chair in the living room, Yu Haoran carefully checked Lin Yun's cultivation base with his divine will, then nodded with satisfaction. When Lin Yun had left Pingyang City after the sex selection, Lin Yun had just broken through to the Martial Master realm with the help of the complete version of the Galeheart Sutra. Now, in less than 9 months, he was already an early 4th grade Martial Master. To be able to directly raise his cultivation by 4 minor realms in a place where the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was scarce, and without the help of spirit stones and elixirs, showed that his talent was not bad, and he usually worked very hard on his cultivation. Although Yu Haoran did not explicitly state the reason for the praise, the feeling of his divine, while scanning his dantian, just now let Lin Yun know that Yu Haoran had already understood his cultivation and progress. In less than 9 months, his cultivation had broken through 4 minor realms of the Martial Master realm, which was not inferior to the number 1 genius of Pingyang City, Yu Haoran's father, Yu Hongji. To be honest, Lin Yun was a little proud in his heart. However, when he learned that Yu Haoran, who was only a 9th grade martial disciple when he left Pingyang City, was now a martial ancestor realm cultivator, the little flame of pride in his heart was instantly extinguished. Therefore, in the face of Yu Haoran's praise, Lin Yun quickly shook his head, indicating that he did not dare to accept such praise. Enough. Yu Haoran waved his hand and motioned for Lin Yun to sit. Then he asked about some things that happened in the Yu clan after he left. However, Yu Haoran did not listen to Lin Yun's narration at all. Instead, he was thinking about his own matters. Lin Yun, if I leave Yu clan, are you willing to follow me? Directly interrupting Lin Yun's narration, Yu Haoran asked, Young clan leader, this subordinate is willing. Without the slightest hesitation, Lin Yun got up and directly knelt down, nodding his head to show that he was willing to follow. Lin Yun, if you follow me, I can guarantee that you will become a martial king and martial emperor in the future. Even a martial saint realm is not a dream. Without the slightest change in expression because of Lin Yun's immediate reply, Yu Haoran continued to stare into his eyes and asked, Bang, bang, bang. 3 consecutive kowtows. Lin Yun used his own actions to express his excitement and willingness to follow. But all of this has a condition. Originally leaning on the ground, Yu Haoran straightened his posture and said with a solemn expression, Because you must use your soul as the price and swear by the rules of the heavenly Tao that in the future you can only be loyal to me. You cannot disobey any of my orders or question any of my requests. At this point, Yu Haoran stood up and asked condescendingly, Lin Yun, are you willing? Lin Yun, Swear by the rules of the heavenly Tao that I will follow the young clan leader until death. I will never question him, much less betray him." In the face of Yu Haoran's condescending questioning, Lin Yun also raised his left hand without any hesitation and swore by the rules of the heavenly Tao. "If I violate this oath, may the heavens strike me with 5 bolts of lightning. I, Lin Yun, will die a horrible death." Good. 3 questions, 3 answers without hesitation. Lin Yun's performance made Yu Haoran very satisfied and happy. In truth, forcing Lin Yun to swear by the rules of the heavenly Tao was also because Feng Qingyun and Chu Zhongyu's attitude outside Qingyuan Hall had made him too sad and disappointed. He had wholeheartedly offered his help, but in the end, he had only received indifference and alienation. In this world, only his big sister Yusiki and Wu Zhengjun, who truly relied on him, might betray him in the future. Anyone who was close to him, in the face of complex and ever-changing situations, in the face of temptations that could change their lives, would probably follow their hearts. And this sort of choice that followed one's heart was not what Yu Haoran wanted. What he truly wanted was someone who could unconditionally believe in him and fight with him to the end, even if it meant losing their lives. Thus, only subordinates who swore by the rules of the heavenly Tao were worthy of his wholeheartedly helping and nurturing. Helping Lin Yun up and pressing him back into his chair, Yu Haoran sat back down and began to consider how to nurture him. Chapter 744. In the living room of Jingya Pavilion. What did it mean to nurture him in all aspects? Other than improving his cultivation and strength, he also had to broaden his horizons and experience. He couldn't let the first person who had pledged loyalty to him become a brute who only knew how to flaunt his superiority. Thinking of this, Yu Haoran already had a detailed nurturing plan in mind. Then, he took out 2 talent stones used to test one's potential from his storage ring and threw them to Lin Yun. He explained, "These 2 talent stones are different from the ones you saw in the sex selection. That's because the talent stones used in the sex selection are of the lowest grade. They can only roughly measure a cultivator's talent and potential. These 2 talent stones can measure your talent, potential, comprehension, and perseverance in detail. Then, based on your performance, I can make more reasonable arrangements." Nodding his head, Lin Yun stood up and held the talent stones tightly with both hands. Seeing that Lin Yun didn't know how to use the talent stones, Yu Haoran reminded him with a wry smile, "Cut your finger and squeeze out 2 drops of blood into the talent stones." Lin Yun, who also felt a little embarrassed, laughed foolishly and used Yuan Li to cut his palm, then stuck the talent stone on the wound. Yu Haoran didn't know what to say except to continue smiling wryly. However, his smile didn't last for long before he was attracted by the color change on Lin Yun's body. The yellow light that represented a martial ancestor was replaced by orange, which represented the potential of a martial king. The orange light didn't last long before it was replaced by green, which represented the potential of a martial king. When the color on Lin Yun's body finally stopped at a light red, Yu Haoran couldn't help but look at Lin Yun in surprise. Who would have thought? He really didn't think that Lin Yun, who had been abandoned as an orphan and kindly adopted by the 9th Elder, would actually have the talent to become a martial saint. "Young clan leader, how is my talent?" After the talent stone in his hand turned into a pile of white powder, Lin Yun stared closely at Yu Haoran and asked nervously, "If you can participate in the sex selection, you will definitely be chosen by a first-rate sect and become an elite disciple of the sect." Although he didn't directly praise Lin Yun, Yu Haoran used practical examples to let Lin Yun know that his talent was outstanding. "That's good." This subordinate was just worried that if my talent was too poor, I would disappoint young patriarch. Patting his chest, Lin Yun couldn't help but sigh in relief. In this regard, Yu Haoran did not say much and began to consider Lin Yun's next cultivation method. After all, although the Gale mental cultivation method that he had given Lin Yun was a complete mental cultivation method martial technique, it was at the peak of the profound level and was definitely not suitable for Lin Yun, who had the potential to reach the beginner stage of the martial sage realm. After picking and choosing, Yu Haoran finally chose a set of top mental cultivation methods that was suitable for Lin Yun's physique and could simultaneously raise his cultivation and physical body grade to the early stage of the heaven rank. Mysterious Sky Fierce Gale Technique. He used his divine thought to engrave the mental cultivation method of the Mysterious Sky Fierce Gale Technique into a jade slip and set up a concealment array that only Lin Yun could see the contents of the jade slip. Then, he handed it to Lin Yun. Lin Yun, this is a mental cultivation method that has reached the peak of the heaven rank. It will be your main mental cultivation method to raise your cultivation and strength in the future. Thank you, young patriarch. In the face of Yu Haoran's gift, Lin Yun didn't politely refuse. After thanking him, he reached out and took the jade slip. Then, Yu Haoran took out a portion of low-end spirit stones and elixirs that were rarely used from the storage ring and transferred them into a storage bag with a space of 70 square meters. As he handed it to Lin Yun, he explained, Lin Yun, this is a storage bag that can be used to store items. There are some elixirs and spirit stones that I have prepared for you in it. It's enough to help you break through to the Martial King realm. Although he still didn't politely refuse, Lin Yun's hands couldn't help but tremble when he reached out to take the storage bag. After Lin Yun took the storage bag, Yu Haoran's mind returned to the storage ring and began to look for suitable celestial devices. In the end, he found a defensive celestial device of the middle stage of the Zone realm and a celestial device of the lower stage of the Zone realm that was suitable to become his natal celestial device. Young patriarch, this. In the face of Yu Haoran's third gift, Lin Yun didn't accept it as decisively as the previous two. After all, the treasures that Yu Haoran had just given him were too precious, so precious that he couldn't bear it. In the face of Lin Yun's hesitation, Yu Haoran didn't say anything and directly threw the two celestial devices to him. Then, Yu Haoran said solemnly with a serious attitude, Lin Yun, the mental cultivation method, storage bag, elixirs, spiritual herbs, and celestial devices that I just gave you are only for the promotion of your cultivation and strength. Next, I'll arrange a task for you. I hope that through this task, you can increase your experience and broaden your horizons. Hearing that Yu Haoran had a task for him, Lin Yun hurriedly put away the two celestial devices and put on a serious attitude of obedience. After some time, I'll return to Xianyang, the capital of Emperor Qin's kingdom. At that time, I'll suggest to Emperor Qin that you be the governor of Pingyang City. Young patriarch, aren't you going to take me with you? Anyone who heard the news of being in charge of the life and death of the people in a city and possessing the resources of a city would be ecstatic. However, Lin Yun's subconscious reaction was not to be ecstatic. Instead, he was worried about why Yu Haoran didn't want to take him with him. In this regard, Yu Haoran was deeply gratified and explained in detail. Lin Yun, most of the opponents I'm facing now are experts of the martial sage realm. With your current cultivation and horizons, if you leave with me now, not only will you not be of help to me, but you'll also be a burden to me to take care of you. Therefore, I hope that you can go through the trial for the position of the governor of Pingyang City. It can help you quickly improve your cultivation and strength, and also broaden your horizons and experience. When the time is right, I'll return to Pingyang City and take you away from here. Yes, my lord. Yu Haoran patiently explained in detail, and let Lin Yun finally accept the order to stay. At the same time, he secretly swore that during the time he stayed in Pingyang City, he would cultivate with all his might and not let Yu Haoran down. Lin Yun, during this time, you'll continue to stay in the Yu family and wait for the imperial edict. Sensing the change in Lin Yun's mood, Yu Haoran nodded in satisfaction and then motioned for him to leave for the time being. Then, he got up and left the living room, then strode into the cultivation room in Jingyao Pavilion. First, he carefully felt the heat in the cultivation room. Yu Haoran discovered that although the heat in the cultivation room couldn't be compared to that of the Earth Source Pavilion in the Medicine King Valley, it didn't lose out to the alchemy room in the 100 Qi Gate, which was specially used for alchemy. Chapter 745. During the PK period, the 5th and 6th chapters would be updated at night. There would be no more reminders in the future. Quiet Grace Pavilion, cultivation room. Howren took a deep breath of the hot air in the cultivation room. He used the hot air to dispel the feelings of missing his father that had just risen in his heart. Then he sat down cross-legged. Then he took out 105th tier 1st grade to 9th grade spirit stones, a 4th tier 1st grade spirit stone, and a portion of elixirs to assist in breaking through to the next realm from his storage ring. He was ready to attempt a breakthrough. However, the breakthrough this time was not a simple one. It was the Martial King realm, commonly known as the Martial King realm. It had been less than 10 days since he had successfully refined the Ice Heart Jade Bone Elixir in the Medicine King Grade Earth Origin Pavilion. The milky white energy rewarded him by the heavenly way had raised his cultivation to the early 5th grade Martial Great Master realm. The reason why he was able to break through to the Martial King realm in less than 10 days was all thanks to the Nirvana Elixir that he had taken previously. The Nirvana Elixir had the heaven-defying effect of being reborn and repairing one's foundation. The 4th tier, 7th grade Nirvana Elixir had increased the effects of these effects by more than 10 times. With the help of the 4th tier, 7th grade Nirvana Elixir, not only had he completely repaired his damaged foundation, but he had also expanded the capacity of his dantian, the area of his sea of consciousness, and strengthened the strength of his spirit. At the same time, the enormous energy contained in the Nirvana Elixir had directly raised his cultivation and physical grade to the Martial Great Master Realm's 10th grade. If not for Thaling's timely use of his divine sense and the formation to help him seal a portion of the Nirvana Elixir's energy, he would have broken through to the Martial King realm. After all, the 4th tier, 5th grade Nirvana Elixir had allowed Feng Qingyun, who was in the Martial Sage realm, to directly break through 2 small realms while increasing his power of loss. Not to mention the 4th tier, 7th grade Nirvana Elixir. Originally, Howren had planned to continue consolidating his cultivation for a period of time before breaking through to the Martial King realm. However, in the star tomb that was about to open, the treasure that could deal with Qin Baijun, who was in the Martial Great Master realm, could only be taken and refined by Martial Kings. Therefore, he could only choose to break through to the Martial King realm in advance. Fortunately, the Nirvana Elixir had the effect of repairing one's foundation. It could offset the side effects of a quick breakthrough. Howren did not have to worry about damaging his solid foundation after forcefully breaking through to the Martial King realm. For the time being, Howren did not use any medicinal pills or spirit stones to break through. First, he closed his eyes and adjusted his aura. When his aura reached its peak, he smashed all the 5th grade spirit stones placed in front of him and signaled Thaling to release the sealed energy of the Nirvana pill in his body. Then, with the help of the rich spiritual chi and the energy of the Nirvana pill, he began to break through the bottleneck of the Martial King realm. About 900 miles away from the south city of Pingyang City, there was a valley with beautiful scenery, clear streams, chirping birds, and fragrant flowers. Although the scenery inside the valley was pretty good, the thin heaven and earth spirit chi resulted in very few martial artists coming here. However, a distance of 900 miles was extremely far for ordinary people. Therefore, this valley could be said to be deserted. Just as Howren decided to break through to the Martial King realm with the help of the rich spiritual chi and the energy of the Nirvana pill, a person suddenly barged into the deserted valley. It was a young man of about 25 or 26 years old, dressed in a sky blue robe and exuding a scholarly aura. Sensing the thin heaven and earth spirit chi in the valley, the young man could not help but frown. Then, the young man waved his left hand, and a palm-sized gray tortoise shell floated in front of him. The young man quickly formed a seal with his 10 fingers. Every time a seal was imprinted on the tortoise shell, a very blurry image would appear on the tortoise shell. When he saw the blurry image, the young man's frown deepened. However, he did not stop forming seals. When the seal formed by his 10 fingers could no longer make the image appear on the tortoise shell, the young man had no choice but to stop. Something's not right. The young man reached out and picked up the tortoise shell floating in front of him. He frowned and muttered to himself. When I was in the sect, I used the innate deduction technique and clearly deduced that a heaven-defying opportunity was about to appear in this valley. Why is the divination so blurry when we are so close to the location of the opportunity? Could there be a mistake in my deduction? As he muttered to himself, the young man closed his eyes and pressed his left hand on the tortoise shell, carefully sensing the special energy in the tortoise shell. I understand now. After sensing the special energy in the tortoise shell, the young man suddenly opened his eyes and muttered to himself with a cold glint in his eyes. There must be someone here who has broken free from the shackles of fate or is protected by the heavenly way. That's why my innate deduction technique was disrupted. Feeling that his deduction was correct, the young man immediately spread out his divine thought and began to check the situation in the valley. However, after checking the valley 3 times with his divine thought, other than some ordinary wild beasts, there was no one in the valley that he had guessed. Something's not right. After retracting his divine thought, the young man's originally relaxed brows could not help but furrow again. Then he simply soared into the sky and went straight to the nearest city to the valley. He planned to ask the locals if there were any strange people who had appeared recently. However, he found out that the nearest city to the valley was called Pingyang City. Furthermore, it was the birthplace of Yu Haoran, the most demon-like disciple of the 100 Chi Gate in the past 1,000 years. The young man immediately knew why his innate deduction technique was disrupted. It was because Yu Haoran was a person who was protected by the heavenly way. He was a person that the young man could not use his innate deduction technique to divine his fortune. At the same time, after asking around, the young man received a piece of news that made him feel both fearful and incomparably excited. Yu Haoran, who was supposed to be attending the engagement ceremony in Xianyang City, had suddenly returned to Pingyang City for some unknown reason. Thinking of Yu Haoran's mystic technique to transform into a mutated beast and the peak rank 4 9th grade black bear that accompanied him, the young man knew that he was definitely not a match for him alone. Therefore, the young man immediately flew out of Pingyang City and headed north. In the technique practicing room, he had already touched the bottleneck of the Martial King realm, with the help of a large number of rank 5 spirit stones and the energy of the Nirvana pill. The 2 types of energy complemented each other. The first strong impact easily broke through the bottleneck of the realm, and his cultivation and physical body advanced to the Martial King realm at the same time. This time, his cultivation and physical body advanced to the Martial King realm. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.